continent and the world. And we've carefully curated those news and current affairs developments that we believe will move the needle in your world today. And we've packaged them into this morning brief, which we now proudly present to you. Among some of what we will tell you over the next 3 hours will be this. We'll give some credit to the initial reporting of the Sunday Times on this particular story. But the former Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, has been speaking out quite a bit about the outcomes of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry and the extent to which its recommendations have or have not been implemented by the government of the day. He's, among some of what he has said to the Sunday Times, has been speaking out about the awkward position in which he was thrust by President Cyril Ramaphosa when the president appointed, and therefore the then Chief Justice had no option but to swear in as cabinet ministers individuals who had been implicated in wrongdoing by the findings and recommendations of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, which the former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo had led throughout its tenure. In reporting from the Sunday Times, Zondo is quoted as saying, and I quote here, "It was like the president was saying, I don't care what you have found about these people. I think they are good enough to be promoted," end quote. So his comments, of course, come as the country is readying itself for at least two more commissions of inquiry. You will know the one is the Madlanga inquiry, which will probe the allegations of malfeasance and collusion between various entities, police officers, some prosecutors, some in the judiciary, with criminal syndicates. That's the essence of the allegation, as well as interference by the now on leave Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, in the operations of the SAPS, particularly the dismantling of the political killings task team. That's the one commission. The other one will be probing whether there were political reasons and political interference in the work that was meant to get underway at the conclusion of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and there's been this belief that the prosecutions that were ordered by the TRC simply did not take off because part of the reason was that there was political interference. So we now have a commission of inquiry into why the recommendations of that commission of inquiry, the TRC, were not implemented. So in the interview with the Sunday Times, former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo also expressing his understanding, the widespread citizen disillusionment with unimplemented recommendations of commissions of inquiry. So we'll have a conversation at the top of 7 a.m., some analysis for you that we've lined up with Advocate Paul Hoffman, who is Director of Accountability Now South Africa, just reflecting on those extraordinary comments by former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Then we turn to this, the other story we will cover. The country's intelligence agencies will have to apply to a designated retired judge before intercepting any citizens' communications, such as the tapping of phone calls and interception of electronic communication. Importantly, where the target that is meant to be intercepted in that way of such surveillance is a journalist or a practicing lawyer, the agencies will have to disclose that fact, the fact that the person we want to tap, whose communications we want to tap, is either a journalist or a practicing lawyer. These are measures that are contained in a supplementary order from the Constitutional Court. Basically, the court came out on Friday and gave this order, which serves to plug what would have been a legal gap, a gap in the law. This after President Cyril Ramaphosa in November last year referred back to Parliament for reconsideration the bill that is meant to amend the flaws that were identified in 2021 in the regulation of interception of communication and provision of communication-related information. That is the RICA amendment bill. So that bill is back in Parliament, and therefore the measures that had been put in place in 2021 by the Concord would have lapsed and left a gap in the law. So this is why these were now given by the Constitutional Court on Friday. At about 20 past 7 or thereabouts, we'll give you analysis with Sam Soul, who is a journalist and managing partner at the Amapungane Center for Investigative Journalism. They've been at the center of it all, and you won't believe the number of times where journalists have been subject of illegal tapping of their communications, interception of their communications. And Sam Soul would know all about it because one of those instances, he was the target. So we'll talk to him at about 20 past 7. So lastly, let me flag this story. Why do some people fake their academic credentials? What's that about? What's that phenomenon? The question arises once again after the Johannesburg Stock Exchange has taken action against Anushka Bogdanov, a former director of the company EOH Holdings, by imposing on Anushka Bogdanov a fine of 500,000 rand and a 10-year disqualification from holding any director or officer role in a JSE-listed company. This follows an investigation which revealed that Bogdanov had falsely claimed to hold a PhD from the London Business School. So we'll talk to Professor Busani Ngaweni, who is principal of the National School of Government, at about 10 to 8 this morning. But I want to hear from you. What's this pressure to say I have a PhD when I don't have one? To say I'm an advocate when I'm far from it? What's that about? All right, give me a call and just share your experiences and your thoughts about the matter. We have all of your essential and regular updates locked and loaded once again this morning. And Musa has your hourly and half-hourly news updates. Rob Byrne is watching your traffic. Zaikan on your sports. Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief. Dauleng Lichela with your business, economics and market updates, as well as Sipho Mandula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7 this morning. Your calls on these and other matters, the number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. What are we waiting for? Let's get the Monday edition of the Morning Brief started.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, to kick us off with this morning's briefing session is Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in Brief. Good morning to you, Melissa. Let's start with news out of the Office of the Auditor General. What's Tsakani Maluleke saying about the Umkhanyakude District Municipality in KwaZulu-Natal? Melissa?
MEC Thulasizwe Simelane to intervene in the troubled Umkhanyakude District Municipality due to its repeated financial mismanagement. As you remember earlier in this month, this is the same municipality where he was blocked entry. The municipality has failed to implement a credit and debt collection policy, leading to potential financial loss. Despite resistance from ANC-led officials who claim the intervention is politically motivated and have taken Buthelezi to court, he has confirmed his commitment to act. Maluleke cited material irregularities and called for urgent corrective action. Buthelezi must submit a formal report by the 15th of August So we will see how this goes.
Yeah, as you say, this is the same municipality where the MEC and other officials went and found a chain and padlock around the gate, and they had to battle and basically break that padlock for them to be able to get inside the premises. Tell me about the strike at FlySafair. That's going into its second week, is it not?
Yes, so this is week 2. Negotiations between Solidarity and FlySafair to resolve the pilot lockout and strike are close to agreement, but stalled due to time limits and unresolved scheduling concerns. While FlySafair's final offer included acceptable salary terms, it failed to adequately address key demands around predictable rosters and to rest time for the pilots. Pilots seek at least one guaranteed weekend off monthly and the creation of a joint scheduling committee with real decision-making power. Solidarity has criticized FlySafair's misleading the public, claiming about the pilot hours and the pay, which has further damaged the trust between the two. Without progress, the union may seek a renewed CCMA intervention to secure a sustainable, safe and fair working schedule. So we will see how this week goes between the two.
And the Patriotic Alliance leader, Gayton McKenzie, had talked about Kenny Kunene, the deputy president in the party, as well as MMC in Joburg, stepping aside. But he's done one better. He's actually resigned in as far as his positions in the city council are concerned.
Yes, so over the weekend, it was said that Kenny Kunene has resigned as Joburg's MMC for transport and as a PA councillor amid the allegations linking him to a murder suspect. While denying wrongdoing, he did step aside during the party's investigation. The city can no longer act against him, but the DA is demanding a full probe into his contracts that he oversaw during his time in the city. Mayor Dada Morero has confirmed that the transport project's delays are being resolved, with the Brief Street upgrade still expected to be finished by the end of August. So it will be interesting to see when they replace him and what the developments around his matter will be.
Yeah, absolutely. The PA insisting that one of its councillors should take up that position in that government that is made up by multiple parties. Thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief for this morning.
Chasing the Sun is a 5-part South African sport documentary series. An inspiring story of the 4-time World Rugby champions, the Springboks. The journey of winning the Rugby World Cup, a behind-the-scenes look of how the green and gold team overcame adversity, divisions and doubt to become world champs. Be there when history shines. Tune into SABC2 on Sundays at 7:30 p.m. from 13 July to 10 August. Also available anytime, anywhere on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
We'll get to that in just a moment, but I do need to give you your weather. Let's start with this. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 18. Johannesburg, partly cloudy, 5 to 16. Mbombela, partly cloudy, 4 to 15. Polokwane will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 17. Mahikeng will have morning fog, otherwise fine and windy, 10 to 18. Bloemfontein, cloudy at first, otherwise partly cloudy and windy, 2 to 17. Kimberley, fine, becoming partly cloudy and windy, 0 to 19. Uppington will be fine and windy, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 22. Cape Town will be fine, 12 to 22. George, fine, 8 to 20. Gqeberha, fine, 6 to 19. East London, fine, 10 to 19. Durban will be partly cloudy at first, otherwise fine, with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 20. Richards Bay, cloudy with isolated morning showers and rain, becoming fine from late morning with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 20. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will be partly cloudy with morning fog patches, becoming fine from late morning with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 17.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
23 minutes after 6. U.S. President Donald Trump has notched up yet another major trade deal ahead of his 1 August deadline for the kicking in of his broad, sweeping tariffs against many nations. Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have announced a deal that will see the U.S. impose a 15% tariff on most goods from the European bloc instead of the earlier threatened 30%. In exchange, the EU has agreed to a raft of measures, including a $600 billion EU investment package into the U.S. economy, as well as the bloc purchasing more U.S. energy and defense products. So let's speak to Anthony van Nieuwkerk, who is a professor of international and diplomacy studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time once again. It's starting to feel to me like there was always this method to what appeared to be madness. All of those massive, unprecedented figures are all falling by the wayside, and it seems to me that this was the strategy all along. This is the second deal, of course, well, not the second, one of several deals struck in recent days, this one with the EU.
Yeah, good morning, Thulas. I think your hunch is right. Your feeling is right. So what Donald Trump did was to say to the Europeans, I'm going to impose a 30% tariff on you, and maybe more. What can you bring to the table? And then he goes and plays golf in Scotland, and the Europeans run to him.
Yeah.
After the Europeans ran to China, where they had a very tough conversation with the Chinese leadership, and it didn't go very well. They went there to lecture and to demand. And the Chinese cut them off, and they came back. So then they went to meet Donald Trump, and Ursula von der Leyen in her press conference yesterday said it was a very difficult negotiation. It was very tough. She acknowledged.
Yeah, she calls him a tough negotiator.
But a tough negotiator, but a good deal maker.
Yeah.
Donald Trump did the same thing he does with other leaders. You sit next to him on a chair, wherever it is. And then he uses that media or photo opportunity to really humiliate the person next to him. He did that to Ursula von der Leyen. We don't have to go into the details, but he was setting the tone. And so I think when I look at some of the details, the Americans won big time and the Europeans lost big time. Because she says her only defense in making the deal was instead of 30%, we brought it down to 15%. But what you read in the more details is that the Europeans were forced to make big investments in the American economy, which means they are paying the Americans to make a deal, in addition to which their exports to America will have this 15% tariff. So they make all these wonderful cars, for example.
Yeah.
They'll still be tariffed, and the Americans will export their goodies to the EU tariff-free, to make up for what Donald Trump says is a decades-old trade deficit in Europe's against them and in Europe's favor, which is true. The Europeans didn't buy much from the Americans. The Americans bought a lot from the Europeans. And the last thing I want to say is that there's a geopolitical point here as well, beyond economics and finance. Ursula von der Leyen said they will now buy oil and gas from the Americans because they want to cut off access or Russian oil and gas completely. They don't want to have anything to do with the Russians. So there again, Donald Trump is on the forefront of executing his foreign policy.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time once again. That's Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk, who is a professor of international and diplomacy studies. That's at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. Tell me about the Proteas regrouping. The Australia tour is up next, is it?
Yep, they better be regrouping to us because we know the Aussies, they don't play games unless it's mind games. And we remember that sandpaper gate.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we've got a lot to look forward to, a lot to play for, and especially on the back of losing that T20 Tri-Series final to New Zealand. We lost by just 3 runs in Harare. Coach Shukri Conrad says he's still proud of the fight shown by his young squad. Now attention shifting to a tough 6-match tour of Australia next month, featuring 3 T20s and 3 ODIs. In the meantime, India pulled off one of the great rearguards to defy England and earn a draw in the 4th Test at Old Trafford and keep the series alive. The tourists batted more than 5 sessions in their second innings to reach 425 for 4. When the players shook hands, they had a lead of 113 when the draw was agreed with 10 overs of the match remaining. Soccer, Mamelodi Sundowns have kicked off their transfer window with a big-name signing. The Bafana defender Fawaz Basadin is officially a Masandawana player and he's already in camp at Royal Marang in Rustenburg. Gearing up for his first season, he will make his debut this weekend in the MTN 8 against Richards Bay. And there's also 2 more local talents. Kulamane Ndamane and Epelela Teto are expected to join the Brazilians soon. And in the meantime, some soccer action elsewhere. Chloe Kelly was England's Euros hero as her winning penalty in the dramatic shootout saw the Lionesses defend their title, defeating Spain 3-1, and that was on spot kicks in the Euro 2025 final after a 1-1 draw after extra time. Here's Kelly.
Yeah, I just came onto the pitch and wanted to make something happen, and I know Les's strengths and tried to put the ball in her head, and then of course taking the penalty. I actually missed 3 penalties in training yesterday. But yeah, I think it's the belief in this squad, whole 23 players and the people that you don't see behind the scenes, the staff members, to get us through this tournament.
And finally, swimming, the South African duo of Rebecca Meader and Erin Gallagher both made it through to the semi-finals of their respective events on the opening day of the swimming program, all happening at the World Aquatics Championships in Singapore. Meader booked her spot in the 200-meter individual medley semi-finals, and Gallagher lined up for the semi-finals of the 100-meter butterfly after a morning swim of 77.48 seconds. So we'll be back, that's right, top of the hour. On the Morning Brief, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the DA says it's concerned that negotiations between South Africa and the US on a trade deal are still not complete, days before the Friday deadline for Washington to impose the 30% tariff increase. European leaders have cautiously welcomed a trade deal struck between the EU and the US in Scotland, and FlySafair says seat availability remains limited under scaled-down operations as efforts to resolve the pilot strike continue. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning from the traffic desk. One of our top stories was the truck crash earlier at Matuba. Traffic was very heavily backed up earlier, but it does seem to be moving through. So if you're driving north of Mpangeni on your way towards Matuba or leaving Matuba, traffic is starting to flow again, but it was stationary a bit earlier. Problems coming out of Kwamashu down towards Malandello and on towards Duffs Road. An issue there as you leave the Kwamashu area this morning. Also, the first of today's breakdowns on the N3 North going up towards Pietermaritzburg. It's stuck before Market Road and already quite a heavy queue pushing back towards Ashburton. Joburg looks okay. No major issues on the highways. Getting busy. The N1 coming out of Pretoria on your way through Midrand. That's fairly busy today from Old Joburg Road all the way down to New Road already. And Cape Town, some real queuing pressure on the highways. The N2 inbound heavy passing Kylie to the Borchards Quarry. More delays from the airport through to Jan Smuts Drive with the crash near Bunga Avenue. And the N1 already busy from Plattekloof Hill all the way through to Sable Road and that Century City exit. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Hey, for the first update of the week, Ndauling Lechela, good morning to you. Let's start with that big story out of the EU and the United States, a trade deal between the two.
Morning, Tula. So another deal in the bag as the August 1st deadline fast approaches. Washington and Brussels agreeing on a 15% tariff on most European goods and goods imported to the US, including cars. Now, this rate is lower than the 30% tariff previously threatened by President Trump, but higher than the 10% baseline tariffs the EU had hoped for. Now, certain products such as aircraft, plane parts, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals will be exempt from tariffs. According to the agreement, the EU has committed to purchasing $750 billion worth of U.S. energy, including LNG and nuclear fuel over the coming years. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen described the deal as the best the bloc could get and emphasized its significance in stabilizing and bringing predictability to the global trade environment. European leaders have welcomed the deal, with Germany's Friedrich Merz and Italy's Giorgio Meloni supporting it. The agreement is expected to benefit many EU companies if all details are adhered to. The EU-US trade relationship was valued at $1.97 trillion in 2024, with the EU recording a surplus in goods trading, but a deficit in services.
Yeah, it would seem we're seeing something of a playbook starting to emerge in terms of these trade deals, and I wonder what it means, how it bodes for countries such as our own, right? Because our clock is still ticking to the 1st of August when those tariffs will be kicking in. Tell me about Samsung Electronics and the deal that they've inked to provide what you're calling a major company with chips.
Yes.
Which company is that?
So we don't know which company it is, but according to a regulatory filing, the company has secured a $16.5 billion contract to supply semiconductors to said company. Although the South Korean company hasn't disclosed the client's identity, the deal spans from this month to December 2033. Industry insiders speculate that Tesla might be the likely customer given its existing partnerships with Samsung's contract chip-making division. Another potential candidate is Qualcomm, which could place orders for chips manufacturing using Samsung's 2-nanometer technology. Now, this contract is expected to boost Samsung's foundry sales and potentially lead to new deals with other fabless chip companies. As the second largest provider of foundry services globally, Samsung is working to ramp up its next generation chip technology. Markets in the meantime welcoming the news, sending the shares up close to 3% this morning.
Lastly, Ndawling, just give us a sense of how we were looking at the close on Friday and how those markets that have opened have set the tone for the week.
So trade optimism is still giving markets a boost, and so stocks closing higher in the US, with the Dow Jones leading the gains up close to 0.5%. The mood was different on the local bourse, with stocks ending the week in the red, the all shading 1%, fueled by a near 2% decline in the Resources 10 complex. The rand starting the week on the back foot, weaker at 17.73 against the dollar. Over in Asia, markets mixed, with investors digesting the latest trade deal and news from Samsung. In the commodities scene now, there's been a slight breather, with oil trending lower this morning at $66 per barrel.
All right, thank you for that, Ndawling. When you hear from Ndawling, you must know that your money, or the money that you wish you had, is already on the move, and therefore your week has well and truly started. She'll be back with a second update just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, we turn to Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning to you. Let's start in the DRC, a trial in absentia.
Refreshing morning, Thulas, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Thulas, indeed, on Friday, the High Military Court of the DRC had to postpone the case involving former President Joseph Kabila to this week, Thulas, on the 31st of July, following an initial hearing. He did not appear in court because his lawyers, Thulas, asked for the reminder of the matter to review the case files and prepare for their arguments. Hence, there was a court grant. But you will also look, Thulas has been in South Africa since 2023, and when he went back to to the DRC went through the Eastern DRC, through Goma. And that's where you will recall also we have reported on the lifting of his immunity by the parliament, meaning that paved the way for possible legal proceedings against Joseph Kabila, the son of Laurent Desire Kabila. Interesting times to us when you see the High Military Court prosecuting the former president.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder how it all squares up with the recent developments, the agreements between the M23 and Kinshasa, and whether that will hold going forward. Tell me about a parallel government that has been formed in Sudan. It's by the RSF, is it?
Thulas, it is by the RSF, 27 months of the civil war, which I also, when I look at the Liberation Movement Summit, they talk about Sudan in passing. Thulas, you can't have a conflict for 27 months and you have different parallel governments. You have a government in Khartoum. Now you have a government that was announced on Saturday between RSF and the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North. That is your SPLM North, that comes out from your Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. Now it's led by Abdallah Aziz Al-Hilu. Now, RSF, we know Hamdan Dagalo has been named as the Presidential Council, the head of the Presidential Council. This parallel government, Thulas, will still say to you, is it the same thing we see in Libya? Is it the same thing we see in Somalia and even Somaliland? But also when you look, the military-led from the Sudanese army, Abdel Fattah, had to come very clear to us that they will not recognize this creation of parallel government, and they will keep on fighting. So you can see, that's why I say this is a serious conflict for 27 months, displaced nearly 13 million people, more people have died, and it seems we have deleted in the servers of our media.
Yeah. And lastly, Sipho, while you were mentioning the Liberation Movement Summit, President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his capacity as president of the ANC, delivering strong remarks at that summit, but touching on an issue, I don't know, Sipho, maybe you have a different experience. This whole idea of beneficiation, we must beneficiate our raw minerals and not export them raw to other countries. They must support industrialization. That's old gospel. It's been around for as long as I've been awake to these issues.
No, correctly, Thulas. Actually, there's a joke that people are saying, liberate us from the liberation movement, because it's like that time has passed. But Thulas, I think this was a historic meeting. The summit that brought leaders, the youngest leader from Mozambique, Daniel Chapo, I saw him being the first one to do closing remarks. Emerson Mnangagwa coming very strong, Thulas, on the issues of sanctions and the issue of immortalizing the history of the liberation. The president of Namibia also, Menandi, coming very clear. But I think when President Cyril Ramaphosa raised this issue, Thulas, of exporting rock and sand and soil, I think he was correct, Thulas, because that's what we see from the Sahel, that your Sahelian states, whether we call them rebel states or rogue states, they are all actually now building their own economy. I think one of the takeaways also for me, Thulas, was the issue of talking about the youth, that the liberation movements must not fear the youth. They must welcome it as a signal of striving for a better life. But for the youth movement, I think it was that the youth movements have to be the engines of ideological clarity, economic innovation. And finally, Thulas, for me, that was the crack when he raised the issue of foreign interference and linking it with economic inequality. Yeah. And that will be proven to us. How will you raise it? Because, they raise the issue of unilateralism, but we are in the world of multipolarity, and that's why they must ground towards the global south, which is the G20. But overall, for me, it's that the Sudan and the DRC, to us, it was a frontline state summit. But why do you ignore DRC? Yeah. To say peace and conflict in the DRC also affects the neighboring countries. Cabo Delgado, have we forgotten? Eswatini, have we forgotten that even Eswatini has been tense? Zimbabwe, it has been tense also under Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa. For me, I think those are the most important observations that I looked up to. But Mnangagwa just to be given a kind of honor to be saluted by the soldier there. I say, the state power and the party power can also coexist.
Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, take me back to the 27th of July, 1927.
Plus, he's almost 98 years. He will have been 98 years. The wife of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, Mezondeni Veronica Sobukwe. They call him the mother of the nation. He was a nurse, Thulas. He played a key role in the labor dispute in the hospital management. That's how he got into the struggle. And he was married to Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. He was born in Shobani village in KwaZulu-Natal. A very important mother that he was also removed from the historical archives. Only we knew about him in 1997 when he testified before the TRC about what caused the death of Mangaliso Sobukwe. Only in 2018, to last 15 August, that's where he lost his life at the age of 91. A very powerful poem by Don Matera about this African queen. Now, as the listeners should just check it out, The African Queen by Don Matera in 2017 in Soweto, when he gave an honor to Me Veronica Zondeni Sobukwe, a very important women in our struggle, Thulas. Asante sana Thulas, as was leading the conversation, SAFM observing the International Mandela Month and the day of Veronica Zondeni Sobukwe.
Sipho, thank you for that. Always fascinating. That's Sipho Mantula there with the Africa update for this morning.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
16 minutes to 7. The South African Police Service, the SAPS, is intensifying operations, we are told, to dismantle organized crime networks and address cross-border security threats following allegations from Lesotho's Police Commissioner, Advocate Boroto Matsoso. These include claims of illegal military-style training camps on South African farms, allegedly linked to a growing Basotho-led land reclamation movement. But importantly, it's important to point out the police, the SAPS that is, report that their investigations have thus far found no evidence of the claimed Basotho military training camps. Let's get further detail on that. Brigadier Athlenda Mate speaks on behalf of the SAPS. Good morning to you, Brigadier, and thank you for your time. So tell us about the work that you did after this. The police commissioner in Lesotho raised these dramatic and startling claims of training camps in South Africa by a group, I think they are called Malatanaha, who, supposedly want to fight and reclaim land that's historically linked to Lesotho in South Africa. So what did you do and what did you find?
Well, a very good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I think it's rather unfortunate that the commissioner would go on a public platform and announce such such statements before engaging with the national commissioner. I mean, Lesotho and South Africa attend bilateral meetings. They've got, a very close working relationship. So it was rather unfortunate that we had to hear through the media that there are these illegal military camps. But we have been working anyway on that information for quite some time. The Hawks were roped in at a very early stage. The unit called Crimes Against the State within the Hawks. They visited various farms in the Free State where they were making allegations that there are these illegal military training camps. In the Free State, they found nothing. They then proceeded to Mpumalanga around the Secunda area where there were claims that perhaps there could be training happening there. They also visited those farms and nothing was found. Our intelligence is on the ground. Or we had a meeting yesterday with the NAT joints. We received another report from our intelligence units throughout the country as well as SSA. And for now, there is no evidence that points out that there is illegal military camps in the country. So we are still investigating. The only evidence that is there that a lot of Basotho nationals are involved in the illegal mining activities, and we have stats that show that because when we do effect arrest, the majority that are arrested are Basotho nationals. So if perhaps they are training underground, then we'd have to really investigate that. But there is no evidence because we know that the majority of them, when they do go in these abandoned mines, they then mine minerals illegally. So in terms of the illegal military camps, no evidence to date.
So it would seem then, based on the public statements of the Lesotho police commissioner, in a way, those had you chasing your tails. But that also raises questions, doesn't it, Athlenda, that you would go on this exercise of chasing your own tails in this manner, because it would raise the question of it should have been easy for you to dismiss this as non-existent. Were you in touch with your own intelligence that would have told you that there's just no credibility to these reports? So the question is, where was your intelligence on matters such as this one?
Look, our intelligence is there, and that's why it came as a surprise to us to say, okay, these statements are being made on a public platform, whereas we've got this close working relations, and not so long ago, the Nat Jones co-chair, which is also the deputy commissioner, was in Lesotho with the police chief, and nothing was mentioned on illegal military training camps. I think it was about a month ago. We had a team from South Africa in Lesotho on a bilateral meeting. We are also having a bilateral meeting in August between the 19th and 20th. But these claims have now forced us to say, let's have an earlier meeting. Let's meet with our counterparts in Lesotho to really discuss this. But what also the National Commissioner has done, he reached out to advocate Matoso to discuss the claims that have been made. But he also highlighted that, listen, we have a very active intelligence. I mean, we have defense intelligence that is always on the ground. We have SAPS intelligence. We've got SSA. I mean, we should have by now picked up these illegal military camps. I mean, we have picked up, you remember, when the Libyans were training in Mpumalanga. We are the ones that detected that. So we have a very active intelligence, and that is always on the ground. So I don't think it's a matter of we were chasing our tails. We just wanted to verify and to find out what are these claims that the advocate is highlighting, but also to ensure that we leave nothing to chance. We also do our part in terms of investigation.
Just lastly, you alluded to this a little bit, the activities of certain criminal groupings that, in some instances have links with Basotho nationals. And I think you mentioned in the area around illegal mining, as well as the other activities associated with that, the clashes we see from time to time. Tell me a bit more about the strategy around that. Do you find that there are instances where there's a disproportionate representation of Basotho nationals in and among the suspects that are involved in some of these crimes? And are you picking that up as a trend and a pattern? And how exactly are you dealing with it?
Look, it's not only Basotho nationals that are involved in crime. We have majority also South Africans, but within the illegal mining space, we find a lot of Basotho nationals that are involved because during arrests, they have the highest numbers and so on, then followed by other countries like your Malawi, your Mozambique, your Zimbabwe that are involved in those. But we also have then, you'll recall, we had a tavern shooting not so long ago in Olivenholt Bosch. What was concerning is that those that were involved and those that were shot were all illegal Basotho nationals and so on. So that case is also being linked to say, do we have patterns of illegal mining and so on? Because in some cases where we do have those targeted tavern shootings, you find that there are links to Zamazamas and what is happening around the illegal mining space. But in terms of other crimes, other organized crimes, you actually find that South Africans are in majority. and so on. So it's not that we are saying Basotho nationals are in the wrong.
Absolutely.
A lot of South Africans as well. We have them locked up in prison, other nationalities as well, Mozambique, Swaziland, Zimbabwe, and so on. But with regards to illegal mining, we find a lot of Basotho nationals followed by South Africans.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And that clarity and that caution that you are sounding there, Brigadier Athlenda Mate, spokesperson of the SAPS, making the point that this is not to characterize Basotho nationals as being the main drivers of crime, but it talks to a specific trend observed in the numbers of arrests, which suggests disproportionate representation, right, in relation to the population, specifically on certain crime categories such as illegal mining.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Northern parts of Pretoria very heavy, particularly above the Ansport and the Montana region. So a stationary truck on the M1 south on-ramp from Sefaka Makato from the Zambezi toll. So leaving Montana, it's heavy. There is a restriction on the M1 south just by the on-ramp, so that's slow. And just off the highway, terrific pressure around Moloto Road and Sefaka Makato Junction. All approaches into that one looking pretty heavy this morning. The M1 south standing from the Brakfontein interchange all the way down to New Road. It is a busy, high-volume Monday. If you're in the shops on the weekend, you just notice how busy the shopping activity was. That transpires into busy roads this morning. One follows the other. The Mike 1 from Boysons heading up towards Parktown heavy. Crash before Oxford Road, and the N3 from Germiston through Edenvale. The new sort of normal there is pretty heavy on that run up through Bedfordview and Gillilis. Durban, there's been a collision seen on the N2 going north, just at Clare Road Bridge. So that is heavy today, coming through from the M7 up through Spaghetti Junction, through the Westwood Mall roadworks, and then into that crash. The N2 really under a lot more pressure than normal. Southbound side, there's a breakdown, plus probably someone looking at that crash. So it's a heavy both ways, but northbound into the collision, very tight. Breakdown between Ashburton and Pietermaritzburg. The N3 going into Pietermaritzburg is under pressure. And Cape Town, if you're heading off to work in the Blackheath Industria area this morning, just south of Cales River, the main drag there, Wimbledon Road, is closed due to protesting. That's putting extra pressure on local alternative routes, either through the Saxonburg side or looping around through sort of Highgate on Noinsfontein. So some really busy conditions in and around Blackheath. Then 2 into Cape Town is heavy as well as you pass Khayelitsha, moving through towards Borchard's Quarry. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
6 minutes to 7. The Johannesburg Mayor, Dada Morero, has taken a firm stance against the rapid spread of informal settlements across the city. On Friday, city officials conducted a raid at the Ginger Park informal settlement in Sandton, targeting illegal and unoccupied structures. Morero has emphasized that the municipality will no longer tolerate unauthorized land occupation and intends to act swiftly to dismantle such settlements. Let's speak to Mlungisi Mabaso, the City of Johannesburg's member of the Mayoral Committee for Human Settlements. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So what exactly do you mean when you say you will no longer tolerate unauthorized land occupation? How does the operation at the Ginger Park informal settlement signal a turning point in your approach to this matter?
Well, thank you very much, Putumakuja, and greetings to yourself and the listeners. Well, I think you will have an appreciation that over the years, Johannesburg has experienced a rapid land invasions across the city, where most of our unoccupied spaces were invaded, and that has a negative impact on our future plans for development. And also, people have invaded spaces that are not suitable for development. And it also poses a risk even on them, because some of these areas are prone to flooding because it's wetland, and others they've invaded on the riverbanks. They've invaded the privately owned properties, which were reserved for certain developments. And in these areas, you will find undocumented foreign nationals in their majority. And they've got people that are owning more than one shack. They've got people that owns shacks in different informal settlements, and they are renting them out these sheikhs in these informal settlements. And that's why we have taken a decision, because we've done our assessment, and through our assessment and enumeration, we've discovered that there are people that owns more than one sheikh, and that's why now we have taken a conscious decision to say, for us to deal with informality in Johannesburg and also to deal with criminal elements, we must conduct these operations. One, where we deal with undocumented foreign nationals in our spaces, where we deal with those that owns more than one sheikhs, where we deal with unoccupied sheikhs in these spaces, because some people erect these sheikhs not because they want to reside there, but because they want to benefit when we introduce developments in the informal settlements, and they want to benefit in different informal settlements where they will own different stands within this particular informal segment, so that they are able to rent them out should they recognize them as residents in those informal settlements.
How will you strike the balance, though, MMC, between what you are describing, uncontrolled proliferation of informal settlements by, including the tendencies that you're talking about, multiple ownerships in various informal settlements, that on the one side, on the other side, the genuine demands for housing in the city, housing and landlessness in the city, against which you've really not kept up as a city and as a government broadly?
Well, there is a policy that we have introduced as human settlements on the management of the informal settlements. And part of the things that we have proposed in the policy is that when we peg stands and allocate them to the residents, we will give them the occupation certificates. And that occupation certificate will then be registered on our system, so that we are able to check if there is anyone that owns more than one sheikh or stand within the informal settlement. So that's one part. But also through our enumeration now, we are also doing assessment with our database. Particularly in the informal settlements where we have not commenced our development processes, to check if there are no duplication in terms of name, so that we are able to deal with those that owns more than one sheikhs in Johannesburg.
Yeah.
But also we are also dealing with the undocumented foreign nationals, because they are at their majority in the spaces, and we find it difficult to work because most of our informal settlements are highly congested. And part of the reason we are unable to move really is because we've got people that are not eligible to benefit in our programs in Johannesburg, because they are undocumented, they are foreign nationals, and we are prohibited by law to even deal with them because we can't define their status. So that's why now we've introduced this system, so that we are able to avert all these challenges that we've encountered in the process of formalizing the informal settlements. But mainly, we want to deal with lawlessness and anarchy, and also deal with this criminal syndicate of people that illegally occupy these spaces in a form of illegally selling these stands to certain individuals.
MMC, let's leave it there for this morning. Let's see how it all unfolds in the coming days, weeks and months, and possibly even years. That's Mlungisi Mabaso, who is the City of Johannesburg's MMC for Human Settlements. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, DA concerned US trade deal far from completion and a resurgence of violence in eastern DRC. Good morning. The DA says it's concerned that negotiations between South Africa and the US on a trade deal are still not complete days before the Friday deadline for Washington to impose the 30% tariff increase. US President Donald Trump had announced the tariff hike, which he said would be implemented if a trade deal was not reached by the 1st of August. The DA's trade spokesperson, Toby Chance.
The DA will welcome a deal with the United States that protects our agriculture and automotive sectors, but the ANC's recent history gives us little faith. A fired ambassador, a special envoy who isn't even on the ground, and minimal action on the looming tariff threat to South African jobs and exports. The ANC must reflect on its disastrous track record of engagements with the US, which have pushed us further and further away from our second largest trading partner.
European leaders have cautiously welcomed a trade deal struck between the EU and the US in Scotland. The agreement reached after talks in Scotland between the President Donald Trump and Ursula von der Leyen has averted fears of a transatlantic trade war. It imposes a 15% tariff on EU goods, half of what Trump had been threatening. FlySafair says seat availability remains limited under scaled-down operations as efforts to resolve the pilot strike continue. Trade union Solidarity is representing more than 200 pilots at the CCMA-led wage talks in Centurion in Gauteng. The pilots, whose strike has entered a second week, are demanding a 10.5% wage increase. The union is reported to have rejected the airline's 5.7% offer. FlySafair spokesperson Kirby Gordon says they hope a solution to the wage dispute will be found soon.
We were hopeful that we'd found a collaborative solution to the roster issue. Our proposal was one that gave the pilots a real say in how their roster was set up, while still allowing us to run a viable airline. However, we remain committed to constructive dialogue and hopeful that we'll reach a fair resolution soon.
Political analyst Riki Mukonza says the National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza is not likely to allow a secret ballot in the vote of no confidence in President Cyril Ramaphosa. The Mkhonto Party says the office of the National Assembly Speaker has confirmed receipt of its request for a motion of no confidence in the President. The MK Party has challenged Ramaphosa's decision to place Senzo Mchunu on special leave and appoint Professor Feroz Kachalia to act as police minister, saying it's illegal. Mukonza says this is politics at play.
The MK party must have done their calculations and realized that probably there could be some fissures within the ANC, and they are looking at exploiting those fissures. The Speaker is not going to allow the secret ballot, and this motion of no confidence is not going to succeed. Yes, South Africa is facing challenges in the areas of governance, national security, also the economy that is not performing. And current government, under President Cyril Ramaphosa, has not done much to convince the public that they have solutions. Having said that,
and finally, the UN Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo has condemned the resurgence of violence in the eastern DRC. This follows an incident in which 38 people were killed in an ISIS-backed rebels' attack on a Catholic church in Commander City. 15 others are being treated in hospital. The ADF rebels, wielding guns and machetes, are believed to have carried out the attack. Recapping the top story, the DA says it's concerned that negotiations between South Africa and the US on a trade deal are still not complete, days before the Friday deadline for Washington to impose the 30% tariff increase. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
With all the recent headlines, it's time for some good news. A 25-year-old man, Tyler, is smiling all the way to the bank. He switched to Outsurance and now saves a whopping 718 Rand a month on the insurance for his 2021 Ford Figo 1.5. Get a quote today and see how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 0800 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer news. The coach of Kaizer Chiefs, Nazruddin Nabi, says pre-season matches serve as preparations, not indicators of form. And we also bring you rugby action. The Lions enjoying a good start to the Currie Cup at the weekend. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Very heavy around Pretoria's Montana area. Stationary truck on the ramp from Sambisi Toll to the N1. So coming out of Montana towards the highway is busy, and a left lane closed at that scene on the M1 South as well. Just off the highway, Maloto Road in Sefaka-Makato, that's pretty heavy as well. Big traffic coming through Midrand. Today, traffic backed up across all lanes from Brockfontein all the way down to New Road. Crash coming through Joburg on the Mike 1 at Parktown up by Oxford Road. That's heavy from Gold Reef City territory. Still with a broken down truck going up into Pietermaritzburg this morning. Traffic backing up beyond Ashburton. That looks heavy. Crash on the N2 North before you get to Umgena Road. Traffic extra badly backed through the M7 and down towards the cement factory area. That run towards Umgena Road really under pressure today. Cape Town, the N2 inbound slow passing Khayelitsha and protesting closing Wimbledon Road in the Blackheath Industrial, causing a lot of localised congestion on those alternative routes. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning to you. It's 7 minutes after 7 on this Monday. It is great to be in your company. We are into the second hour of the Morning Brief on this Monday. And among some of what we will cover in this hour, we'll touch on the comments of the former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo regarding his own reflections on the extent to which there's been follow-through from the work that he did around the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. But importantly, he's been talking to the Sunday Times about the awkwardness of being expected to be the one who does the swearing in of individuals against whom his Commission of Inquiry had made serious findings of malfeasance, but simply because those people have had at that point been appointed to the cabinet and the executive broadly by President Cyril Ramaphosa, it would then fall on the then Chief Justice to administer the oath of office. And he's just been talking about how that made him feel like it was like, and I'm quoting him here, according to the Sunday Times, it was like the president was saying, I don't care what you have found about these people. I think they are good enough to be promoted. So that conversation we'll have in the next few minutes with Advocate Paul Hoffman, who is Director of Accountability Now, South Africa. That's coming up in the next few minutes. And shortly thereafter, we'll be talking to Sam Soul about the Constitutional Court moving to plug what would have been a gap in the law because, in 2021 or thereabouts, in a case involving Amapungane, the Constitutional Court made the finding that certain aspects of the act known as RICA, believe you me, I don't have the energy to say the full. Oh, in fact, maybe let me do it. Let me challenge myself on a Monday morning. RICA, you and I call it. It's the Regulation of Interception of Communications and Provision of Communication-Related Information Act. The RICA Act. There have been amendments that were meant to take place after that case in 2022, I think, 2022, 2021, thereabouts, that said the defects in RICA had to be fixed within a period of time. I think 2 years it was. But that didn't happen because in November last year, President Ramaphosa sent the amendment bill that had come out from Parliament, sent it back to Parliament and said, actually, I'm still concerned that it remains with provisions that would render it, possibly unconstitutional. So to avoid a gap, there have been these a new order coming through that came through from the Constitutional Court on Friday that basically says if the country's intelligence agencies want to surveil a person, they must apply to a judge in terms of intercepting their electronic and telephonic communications. But if that person happens to be a journalist or a practicing lawyer, they need to disclose that fact to that judge. So Sam Soul will reflect on it. He is from Amapungane Center for Investigative Journalism. And lastly, let me tell you that towards the end of the hour, we'll be in conversation with Professor Busani Ngaweni. We'll be talking about this phenomenon of people faking their qualifications. We've seen it in many instances. Who can still remember the case of the engineer that wasn't at PRASA? There have been cases here at the SABC. I think it was someone called Ellen Chabalala that was implicated in such a scandal. Tabili Yoka. So there have been quite a number. Now we're dealing with the case of Anushka Bogdanov, who is a former director of the company known as EOH Holdings. That's the latest coming through from the JSE. Through it all, please do give me a call and let's engage. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Without further ado, let's get the second hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
This July, journey beyond the horizon with Chasing the Sun. 5 mesmerizing episodes every Sunday at 7:30 on SABC2 from 13 July to 10 August. Feel the thrill of the adventure, the power of discovery, and stories that light up the skies. Missed an episode? No worries. Stream anytime, anywhere on SABC Plus. No subscription required. Chasing the Sun. Your Sunday nights just got brighter. Tune in to SABC2, Sundays at 7:30 or watch on SABC Plus on demand.
For the love of the game.
Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
13 minutes after 7. Credit to the reporting of the Sunday Times on this story. The former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has spoken out about the awkward position in which President Cyril Ramaphosa placed him when the president appointed and therefore Zondo had to swear in as cabinet ministers individuals implicated in wrongdoing by the findings and recommendations of the State Capture Commission, which the former Chief Justice led. In reporting from the Sunday Times, Zondo is quoted as saying, and I quote here, "It was like the president was saying, I don't care what you have found about these people. I think they are good enough to be promoted," end quote. His comments, of course, come as the country is readying itself for at least 2 more commissions of inquiry. One probing the allegations made recently by the KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and the other into whether political meddling stymied TRC-ordered prosecutions of apartheid-era crimes. Let's speak to Paul Hoffman. Advocate Paul Hoffman is Director of Accountability Now. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. What do you make of these comments? Extraordinary. Usually judges, retired judges such as former Chief Justice Zondo will be guarded and reserved and not want to advance strong opinions in this manner. Does it communicate his levels of dismay and frustration at the work that he has done and just watching it and seeing no action or implementation thereof?
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners as well. I think that the former Chief Justice is expressing disappointment, frustration, and concern. He's disappointed, as are the people who were involved in his commission of inquiry, that very little has come of the recommendations made at the end of that 4-year process. The government, led by President Ramaphosa, is simply not prepared to properly implement what was recommended by the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. The frustration is that the problem that the Zondo Commission was investigating in the inquiry continues, and the concern for the future of the country. And that is why he has chosen to breach all protocol, as you suggest in your intro, and actually go public, certainly on the sideline of the South African Council of Churches. But nevertheless, publicly, he's drawn a line in the sand and said, listen here, I'm not pleased with the way that the government is responding to the Zondo Commission of Inquiry recommendations. And the real sadness of all this is that the president refuses to engage on these allegations, these concerns, these disappointments.
Yeah.
And says, if you want to speak to me, or he says this through Vincent Magwenya, his spokesperson, if you want to speak to me about this, make an appointment and come and see me. It's not at all helpful given the gravity of the concerns raised by former Chief Justice Zondo.
What's your best theory and perhaps thinking, Advocate Hoffman, of why it is that there would be this inertia or, just slow approach towards implementing these recommendations? Because the Commission of Inquiry and the work that it did was meant to be a centerpiece of what the Ramaphosa presidency was about, this renewal and
the anti-corruption
and cleansing of, public morality. So you would think that there would be that anxiety to get going. Is it that the recommendations, being wide-ranging as they are, were always going to take long to implement, or is there something else at play?
No, I think that Bonong Mohale, the Chancellor of the University of the Free State, hit the nail on the head when he said in a public address in the United States recently that the once glorious ANC has morphed into a criminal enterprise, and that problem is what is at the root of the failure to implement the Zondo Commission recommendations in relation to anti-corruption. You'll remember from the main speech that he made last Wednesday that former Chief Justice Zondo said in terms that his recommendation in relation to policing or monitoring, controlling tenderpreneurism, in other words, the abuse of the public procurement system in South Africa, required an independent body to administer the public procurement system. And what we got instead of an independent body was the National Treasury, which is not an independent body. It was given the task suggested by Zondo for cleaning up public procurement, which is the main source of income to the corrupt. So I think that's sort of slap in the face. And really, the failure, if we go back to the beginning of all of this, in 2011, the Constitutional Court was seized with litigation about the closure of the Scorpions and their replacement with the Hawks. And in that litigation, the court found that a body outside executive control is required to deal effectively with corruption in South Africa. Now, that body has never, ever been established in South Africa. That's through 2 Zuma presidencies and 2 Ramaphosa presidencies. They simply pretend that it's not there, and hence the frustration and the concern and disappointment, which I highlighted at the beginning of this interview. It really is a serious situation when the governing party in South Africa is not serving the people, but is enriching its leadership.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Advocate Paul Hoffman, who is Director, Accountability Now, South Africa.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, Think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Mr. Govender, congrats on the retirement. You just sold your car to We Buy Cars. Tell us about it.
Yes, it just gathered dust in the garage, so I exchanged it for cold hard cash. Now my wife and I can enjoy a stress-free retirement.
Retiring the car as you retire. Nice. So why We Buy Cars?
It was so quick. They came over to our house to do the evaluation, and we sold it the same day. Tops, man.
Okay, so now you got even more time on your hands, eh?
Exactly.
We Buy Cars. Geared for your next chapter. Geared for you.
Get ready to embark on a thrilling journey of crime, redemption, and the pursuit of justice as Soon Comes Night premieres on SABC 1, Sundays at 8 p.m. A tale about liberation hero turned heist king, Alex Shabane, in a 6-part drama. Starring Gwenzo Ngobo, Kenneth Nkosi, Albert Pretorius, Didintle Khunou, Khausi Raditulo, Aneliswa Pewa, and Bahumi Mhlongo. One man in search of justice, the other on a path to redemption.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's turn our attention to the story coming out of the Constitutional Court on Friday. The country's intelligence agencies will have to apply to a designated retired judge before intercepting any citizen's communications, such as the tapping of phone calls and interception of electronic communication. Importantly, where the target of such surveillance is a journalist or a practicing lawyer, the agencies will have to disclose that fact to the designated judge. These measures are contained in a Constitutional Court order that came out on Friday, which serves to plug what would have been a gap in the law after President Cyril Ramaphosa in November last year referred back to Parliament for reconsideration the regulation of interception of communications and provision of communication-related information RICA Amendment Act, RICA Amendment Bill. So let's speak to Sam Soul, who is journalist and managing partner at the Amapungane Center for Investigative Journalism. Good morning to you, Sam, and thank you for your time. Do I have this right? There would have been a gap in the law because that amendment that was ordered in the Amapungane judgment all those years ago has just not, been seen over the line. Do we know why that has not happened?
Yes, Thulasizwe. In fact, there has been a gap. I think since more or less since January and until this judgment, where any interceptions that were granted would be of questionable legality, because we went to court around the constitutionality of the provision years ago. The Concord ruled and gave interim orders pretty much along the lines that it has repeated now, but gave Parliament 3 years to fix the legislation. They were tardy. They sent their fix to the President to sign into law late last year. According to the President's papers, his lawyers still considered that some of the measures would struggle to pass as constitutional, and so he sent the bill back. Now, the President appears to have thought that the interim measures would just continue to run after the 3 years, but in fact the whole interim order lapsed. So there was no viable legislation that was governing this in the interim from the end of last year. So the President had to approach the Concord on an urgent basis to essentially provide a fix. But it's very, very problematic that it got to this stage. The state needs to do legal interception, and I think it's a lesson that in government we need technical expertise, because otherwise we keep getting tripped up. The NPA did the same thing with extradition law, etc. So that's the lesson, and the Concord has had to step in and fix this.
Is it beginning to appear to you, Sam, as if these fixes that have come through from the Concord may end up being actually the substantive law going forward, given that, for instance, when the president referred the bill back to Parliament, part of his concerns had to do with this specific aspect, particularly the issue around post-surveillance notification, how that would be handled. There's this mechanism that has been put by the Concord that says 90 days after the surveillance has ended, the person is meant to be notified, and the judge then informed that actually we've notified this person that we placed them under surveillance. Is it starting to look like there is no other fix other than the fixes that the Concord has put in place?
Yeah, yes, I think so. I think it's. I'm speaking from memory now in terms of what Parliament tried to do, but I do think they tried to fudge the deadline in relation to post-surveillance notification. The point of notification is, unless at some point you're told that you were monitored, and this is what happened to me years ago. You never know, so you can never challenge that decision and say, was it based on proper legal grounds? So the protection is, at some point, whoever is the subject of surveillance needs to be told. And the court has implemented a 90-day provision, which can be extended, but by no more than, I think, a maximum of 2 years. So after 2 years, you have to have got your plan together and then tell the target, yes, we monitored, because we have seen abuses in the past of this legislation.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That is Sam Soul, journalist and managing partner of the Amapungane Center for Investigative Journalism.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Very good morning to you. Let's start with soccer. Kaizer Chiefs head coach Nazruddin Nabi says pre-season matches are just for preparations and results don't matter. He's managed to see most of his players in friendly matches before the new season, and he feels the team has improved even though they lost against Ghanaian giants Asante Kotoko and won only one of their 6 pre-season matches.
C'est vrai, on a voulu donc de faire plaisir pour les supporters, pour le Toyota Cup. Ça reste toujours un match amical. On a voulu gagner.
I would say that it's the second Toyota Cup that we play, but we believe that from last season to today, we have improved. Our team has improved, although there is some areas that we need as well to work on more. Today was a friendly game. We would have loved to win it, and we did everything to win it. Unfortunately, we didn't, but we believe that we are in the right direction going forward to the league.
Let's go to cycling news. Vote for an ad denied Tadej Pogačar a prestigious win on the final stage of this year's Tour de France as the Slovenian Pogačar secured his 4th Tour title.
Burnouts happen in sports, in a lot of sports. Mental burnout, physical burnout. We do train a lot. I think cyclists, we are a bit sometimes too obsessed with trainings, and we always try the hardest everybody wants to train more and more and more, and
let's go to motorsport now. Oscar Piastri passed McLaren teammate Lando Norris on the first racing lap of a wet-dry Belgian Grand Prix to take his 6th victory of the year and extend his championship lead. Yes, Piastri.
It was a great race. I knew that trying to take the lead on lap 1 was my best chance of winning, and I was able to make it happen, which is nice. So got a good run out of one, and then had to be pretty brave through Eau Rouge and try and stay as close as I could, and then got the slipstream and got it done. So very, very happy.
And it was, of course, Lando Norris in second and Charles Leclerc driving in his Ferrari third. And that's a wrap. We'll be back in the fast lane. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, trade union Solidarity says FlySafair's pilots are willing to reconsider their wage demands on condition that the current scheduling system is also considered. The pilots are seeking more predictable rosters and at least one guaranteed weekend off per month. The DA says it's concerned that negotiations between South Africa and the US on a trade deal are still not complete, days before the Friday deadline for Washington to impose the 30% tariff increase. And the UN Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo has condemned the resurgence of violence in the eastern DRC. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's very heavy around the Montana side of Pretoria, so we're talking northern parts, northern parts of Pretoria. There's a stationary truck on Sefako-Makato at the ramp to the N1 as you come through that Zambezi toll. So that's all backed up on Sefako-Makato from Montana, but the truck is also obstructing the left lane of the N1 south. So coming down from the Pumalani Plaza side, that's pretty bad as well. The Mighty Mopori Highway queuing in and outbound around the Bend section. That's unusual if you're going in or out of Shoshenguve, both ways this morning jamming. Joburg's Highway is fully loaded. The N1 from Soweto moves very slowly up towards Gordon Road. There's another crash now on the Mike 1 North before Crown. There was one at Parktown which backed everything up, but this is another one. So coming through from Ormonde, it's very heavy. Going into Pietermaritzburg from Durban. A big queue now extending back through Ashburton, back towards Linfield Park. That's the stationary truck before Market Road that we've been talking about. So the N3 is very heavy, and the R103, that run through from Linfield Park, Ashburton, up to Polly Shorts and into Pietermaritzburg, bad as well. Crash on the N2 North before Mgeta Road. Traffic all the way parked back to Cement Factory and looking heavy. Cape Town, a lot of pressure on the N2 inbound this morning through Khayelitsha, between Spine Road and the R300. And the Blackheath Industrial area, lots of road closures due to protesting. Heavy traffic on local alternative routes between Cales River and Blue Downs. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. Dr. Ndauling Lechela, good morning to you.
Please, I don't want any trouble. No doctor, my name.
Come on now, Dr. Lechela.
No PhD.
Tell us about this fine that the JSE has imposed on a former IOCO, formerly known as EOH executive, and it has to do with exactly this joke that you and I are sharing, Doctor.
Yes. Doctor, the JSC imposing penalties on Anushka Bogdanov, a former director of IOCO, for falsely claiming to hold a PhD from the London Business School. Bogdanov was publicly censured, fined 500,000 rands, and disqualified from serving as a director or officer of any JSE-listed company for 10 years. Now, this action follows an investigation that revealed Bogdanov misrepresented her qualifications, leading to IOCO misleading its shareholders and the public. Bogdanov served as an independent non-executive director at the company from June 2019 until her resignation in July 2020. The JSE's investigation initiated in November 2020 found that Bogdanov did not possess a PhD, contrary to her claims. Now, despite numerous opportunities to provide proof, the JSE says Bogdanov failed to substantiate her qualifications and eventually admitted in late 2024 that she did not have a PhD.
Yo, that's so disconcerting. And it's just the latest installment in these sagas. And by the way, we'll be speaking to Professor Busani Ngaweni in the next few minutes about that particular phenomenon of, people presenting fake credentials for employment, including at the highest levels in some of these entities. In property, tell me about Hyprop walking away from its MAS bid.
So the group has withdrawn its bid to acquire a controlling stake in MAS, citing a lack of transparency regarding the company's development joint venture agreements. According to Hyprop, the MAS board refused to share the full agreements, which cover projects accounting for nearly half of MAS's net assets, making it impossible for them to assess the risks involved. Hyprop CEO Mornay Vulcan stated that without access to these agreements, they couldn't proceed with the deal. In response, Prime Capital CEO Martin Slabbert accused Hyprop of using the joint venture contract issue as a pretext to exit the bid. Slabbert claimed that Hyprop's real motive was to deflect attention from the questionable structure and opportunistic terms of their offer. Now, Prime Capital has welcomed the termination of Hyprop's bid and is moving forward with its own proposal.
Lastly, Dowling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
Starting in Asia, stocks are mixed with investors eyeing talks between the US and China. The Hong Kong Hang Seng is up 0.46%, while the Japanese Nikkei takes a knock down 1%. Over in Wall Street, futures are in positive territory. A busy week in the US, more tech earnings out, and the Fed will be meeting to decide on rates. The SARB also under the spotlight this week as local traders eye policymakers' next moves. Ahead of that, the rand is trading on the back foot at 17.74 to the dollar. Markets in the meantime closing in the red on Friday with the all share shedding 1%. Moving over to the commodities scene, oil prices steady this morning at $67 per barrel.
All right, thank you for that, Ndauling. We'll talk to you one more time just after 8:30 with the final update of the morning.
SA Sport Awards reflect our collective nation-building spirit. Mzansi's sport heroes and heroines have shown resilience, persistence, passion, discipline, and world-class achievements in the sports fraternity. Nominees will be announced in August. Let us celebrate #IsinjaSeGame. Catch the 18th Annual SA Sport Awards on Sunday 24 August at 7:30 p.m. on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, then on SABC 1 at 8 p.m. Brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture in partnership with SASCOG and SABC Sport. Celebrating sporting excellence.
Wayne, for you, what is the real deal? For me, it's really customer service. It's getting my money's worth. So if I phone Outsurance and I've got a problem, they're always there.
So it's not just, we've got your money, now off you go.
No, money is not the biggest deal for me. It's service. Just phone Outsurance, get a quote and see what they can offer you. If you don't save that 321 like I did, you might get a 500 or $1,000 back. Service and savings, you'll always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. What does you always get something out mean to you, Lorette?
Outsurance made it possible for us to live our dream to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and say, yes, yes, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's bring in your reflections then on some of the stories that we have covered this morning, as well as any other matters that may be exercising your mind this morning. A lot of you commenting on what Ndauling and I were talking about, the issue of fake qualifications, as well as, of course, the conversation we will have with Professor Busani Ngaweni a bit later on.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I just have a question. Why do other people get arrested for faking qualification? I remember the Transnet guy got like 15 years for faking his qualifications. And then now this one just gets a fine. Why are others fined and why are others arrested? Can you please help me understand that?
Yeah, no, good question. It is now a crime in terms of the new amendments that were brought in not so long ago to, what is it called? The Qualifications Framework Act. they brought in some amendments that make it a criminal offense. But usually, there's a lag between the civil, and economic sanction, or let me call it professional sanctions, being meted out. So your professional association, will be swifter than the criminal justice system in holding you to account. That may come, 5-6 years later, if at all. And that really is the problem that we face in many instances. But you're absolutely right. In terms of the law right now, it's not only something that you're meant to suffer professional consequences for, but it's actually meant to also lead to a criminal sanction. But as I say, the gap between the two can be quite frustrating, just watching it unfold at snail's pace.
Good morning, this is Simelane and SAFM listeners. People fake their qualification to get promotions and to get the societal status. And the sad part is that people with qualifications are languishing in poverty, and that will not end as long as our laws in South Africa are still like this. Thank
you for that. And I wonder about that social status. That's like, that's playing Russian roulette, isn't it? I mean, you will enjoy the status for the moment while your ruse is perpetrated and people still believe that you are a prof. There's a friend of mine who likes to refer to me as SC. And I've made it a point that whatever she does, that don't call me SC at all, because part of the explanation from one person that I spoke to some years ago is that you get comfortable. It starts as a joke and people call you SC and you don't correct them. Soon enough, people believe that you are senior counsel. And meanwhile, you're just not. Objectively, you are just not. You are nowhere near that, but you've gotten so comfortable, and then it becomes awkward to correct, that misconception, and you just hope, that no one ever finds out. Let me hear this reflection on Donald Trump, as well as the issues that were raised about, what the SAPS was investigating around alleged training camps for Basotho nationals in the country.
Good morning, Chilas. This is Lerato. Regarding land invasion and informal settlements that are just springing up, there is one settlement that is around the Reimsig area, which is in Roodepoort, close to Cradle Stone Mall. I mean, that place used to be like literally informal, like tents type of thing. So now it's a fully fledged informal settlement.
Yeah. And that's how it always plays itself out. And I think that's the question I was bringing to Mlungisi Mabaso, that once people are entrenched, those become their homes. And then if you're going to uproot them, that becomes a bit of a challenge in terms of the laws, what you need to go through in terms of laws such as the PI Act, Prevention of Illegal, Eviction Act. You now have various responsibilities because you watched as this went from, just one or two shacks that are erected, and you did not direct these people to land that you say you are making available alternative land elsewhere, and then they get entrenched, and you end up with that situation such that it becomes difficult to address that issue. Sipho in Mpumalanga, good morning to you.
Morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. Please go ahead.
Thanks that you mentioned also the issue of placing people in the right place when you evict them. I was in a court in Witbank in Manasquin on Thursday. The applicant was applying for the eviction because I bought the house in 2015. Then I lost job. Then I couldn't pay. So now, when I went to the court, I was there before 8:30. My name was not called, but other people's name were called. So I moved just for a few minutes, then came back. Then when I came back, I was not called. Then the next thing, the lady, there's a lawyer who came out and said, "But you've been here for long. What is your name?" I told her. Then she went inside the court, the civil court. Then when she comes back, she told me that the magistrate said I was called, so the eviction order is being granted. So you see, when you go to the civil court, you don't have the court register or like what is it, hall where they see everybody is there so that they can make sure that they tell you that you appear today. So, like unlike the criminal case.
So there's no civil role at the court where you were in Mpumalanga?
There is no. So
that doesn't
for me,
sound right.
It's a deliberate miscarriage of justice.
Sure.
Because I was there, and the other people, they were called like at irregular intervals for the whole hour. I was never called. The next thing today, I need to go and get my eviction order, which for me is unfair.
All right.
Because I'm no longer fighting for the house. I'm now fighting for fairness when it comes to justice.
Gotcha.
Because I don't know where to go now. I need to go and get my eviction order, but I don't know where to go.
All right, Sipho, thank you for sharing your story, distressing as it is. And hopefully someone is listening that is able to guide Sipho there about the frustrations of the justice system, particularly some of the practices at the court in Mpumalanga, in Emalahleni. Thabiso in Bloemfontein, good morning to you. Please go ahead.
Morning to Thulasizwe. Yes, ma'am. The Lesotho land claim, I think we should go deeper into this. Maybe we should get Dr. Dipolo to come and tell us about this land claim.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that is advocating for the return of the land. So my question will be, before the Basotho, who were the residents of that land? And how did the Basotho conquer the land? How did the Basotho lose the land? How did South Africa, the Boers, came to occupy the land?
Sure. So the historical context is important for you.
Yes. That will erase this land claim from the Basotho, because they were living in this land before the Basotho. Like my great-grandfathers were in this land before Moshwesho come and conquer them.
Sure.
Yes.
Wow.
We are the rightful owners of this land and the Khoi and the San, not the Basotho.
All right. Thabiso, thank you for that. And I think I saw a report that says the MP who's been, championing this issue was arrested. I don't know what the status is. The MP in Lesotho, that is said to have been championing this issue, was arrested recently. I don't know whether he's out or what's the status there. So, Thabiso, they're saying, let's go even far back and deeper into the historical context if we are to deal with this claim of land, that historically belonged to Basotho in South Africa. Thabo in Kronstadt, good morning.
Good morning, Thulas, and how are you, Thulas?
Very well. Please go ahead, my brother.
Thank you. Thulas, I'm now at 76 years old. What I want to say, the topic you started this morning of Zondo Commission, there is nothing left anymore. When Zondo Commission Chief Justice had mentioned and talk, we have all to listen. Lesedi FM, Motsweding, Ukozi, FM, they must now start dealing with this case, which Zondo Commission had mentioned. I'm sitting with the Sunday Time now. As Judge Zondo, former Judge Zondo, had said a lot. We have to act.
Yeah.
Within 3 months, Judge Zondo must move to Union Building to take over. Within 1 year, South Africa must go to the election, because we cannot go and put ourselves blind and not hearing what Judge Zondo say about the state capture. And now Professor Hoffman had already said that President Ramaphosa refused to implement what Judge Zondo had said.
Yeah.
That is what I wanted to say.
Thank you
to
for that,
Can
Thabo.
you weigh in or engage me in talking about this story?
Yeah. Did you say you are 76 years old?
Yes, I'm 76 years old. Yes.
You sound so youthful. Did you hear me saying my brother?
Really, we are
That's
very
what I
worried.
called
I'm
you.
happy, giving me a space you can say we are in a big danger. Last week I told you that the money which Gordon Wine had issued, the budget, must come down to the regions. Free State, we've got 5 regions. We need money. Now, the national is a pool of money. They are wasting the money. The money must come with a cost code to the regions.
Thank you,
now Judge Zondo, within 3 months, must move to the Union Building, take the reins so that we must go to the refresh and go to the new election. Thank you.
Thank you, Thabo. A vote of confidence there in former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Before I go to the traffic, let me take Churchill very quickly in Mthatha. Good morning to you, Churchill. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Tulas. Hey, Tulas, this is a ton of issue. This is a very serious issue. The issue of fake certificates. And it's also related to the issue of nepotism in South Africa, where people are employed, they're not having qualifications, and it needs to be attended as a matter of urgency. And I think it goes back to our constitution because, when it comes to, punishing those, I think it was very lenient. And I also wanted to ask is whether, is there no process whereby people are actually charged for undue benefiting? Yeah. Whereby you could go to an extent of actually attaching their benefits, their pensions, and what they have actually accumulated during that period of time.
Yeah, all of those processes are there, Churchill, and I think it will come out when we speak to Professor Ngaweni that on paper, all of that is there and it's possible. It's just how long it takes and the amount of work involved in trying to ensure that you then remedy that situation where a person would have been appointed to the highest echelons, particularly in government departments and SOEs, and increasingly you're seeing it as well in the private sector. It just takes long. But all of those, on paper at least, they do exist. And I think you'll hear it when we speak to Professor Ngaweni. Thank you for that. We'll come back to your calls and WhatsApp voice notes a bit later on.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's pretty busy back to work Monday this morning. A good barometer, that is the Gauteng highway networks. The N1, for example, coming out of Soweto, being held by a crash just up to Gordon Road, or probably close to Albertina Sisulu. So coming out of Soweto going north, it's slow. And then you just hit this wall of traffic from Beyers Nordia all the way around to Rivonia Road. Crash at Galuli, so the N12 and R24 routes in towards the N3 are backed up. And the N3 from Germiston, sluggish right through to Modderfontein Road. Heavy pressure on the M1 if you're coming out of Pretoria from Brockfontein down to New Road. That traffic across all lanes, and still very busy exiting Montana. Stationary truck sort of stuck on the on-ramp there from Sefaka-Makato to the N1, blocking the left lane of the M1 south as well. So exiting Montana to the highway and on the N1 going south, that is all heavily backed up. Durban, the crash on your way to the bluff on the M7, just down by Belleville Road from North Dean, North Park. That all gets a bit heavy. The N2 crash going up to Umgena Road's being cleared, but there was a broken down vehicle after that. That's also being cleared, but it's a heavy backlog basically from Chatsworth all the way through to Umgena Road this morning, really under pressure. Cape Town, if you work in Blackheath Industrial, you'll be hitting some really crazy traffic. Multiple routes in the industrial area there at Blackheath are closed down due to protesting, sort of from Blue Downs right through to that Range Road junction. So both sides out towards the Van Riebeek Road and west down towards Highgate, Noinsfontein, south towards the Hindle Road. It's all very heavily backed up in that part of Cape Town, working your way around those closures at Blackheath on the hunt for alternatives. And really busy coming out of Tableview this morning, particularly Marine Drive, standing from Sunningdale, Bayside Junction, all the way through to Marine Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
Breaking news. SARS has enhanced the personal income tax return form. It has simpler questions that adapt to your income and deductions based on your answers. Whether you're employed or self-employed, the digital form has built-in guidance and the option to save and finish later. Tax matters, so does your time. File with ease on e-filing or the SARS Mobi app today. Go to sars.gov.za. SARS, at your service.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
All right, let's come back to that story. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange taking action against Anushka Bogdanov, a former director of EOH Holdings, now known as IOCO, imposing a fine of 500,000 rand and a 10-year disqualification from holding any director or officer role in a JSE-listed company. This follows an investigation which revealed that Bogdanov had falsely claimed to hold a PhD from the London Business School. Let's speak to Professor Busani Ngcaweni, Principal of the National School of Government. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. I know that you've grappled with this issue quite a number of times in your writings. I suppose let me start before we get into perhaps the systemic issues. What at a socio-economic and a social level, what's your best understanding of why we see individuals claiming to hold qualifications that they simply don't hold and getting away with it for so long?
Thank you, Thulasizwe. There are two main reasons why people falsify qualifications or lie. The first one is they want to get ahead. They want to be ahead of everybody else. So it's the same as taking drugs and you go run a race so that you get ahead of everybody else. So it's exactly the same. And the second one is because people want to be acknowledged, they want to be recognized, they want to be celebrated, they want to be respected. Once you achieve those two things, you are ahead, you are different to everybody else. You may then have access to opportunities that everybody else doesn't have because it gives you an advantage compared to others. The problem, however, is at times you may find that the person does not even need to falsify the qualification. The person may have what is needed as a minimum. The person may have the experience which may enable the person to get into a board, for an example. There are very few board positions that are advertised where there is either a listed company or non-listed companies that will require a PhD as a minimum requirement. In the majority of cases, they're looking for relevant experience in a particular area because of the position that is vacant. But because people want to get ahead, they want to be respected, there is this LinkedIn phenomena, then people go on to falsify the qualification.
What's your sense of how consequence management for this kind of behavior is handled? I know that much of your experience and your area of focus has been in the public sector, but by comparison also with the private sector, does it get punished enough?
Yeah, I think it is now because the qualifications framework was changed, so there is a law against it. It has now been criminalized, and it is encouraging to see that both in the public as well as in the private sector, it is being punished. This is not the first case. It's because it's in the GSE. They have to issue statements, so we are becoming aware of it. But there will be several others that are not in the line of sight of the public because it may not be a listed company. In the public sector, it is the same. We know of officials who now are serving sentence because that's what the law requires as a consequence of doing this. What is interesting, though, is that is why we're arguing that there has to be, people must belong to professional bodies. Because even if I, as an employer in my department, if someone falsifies and I take long to meet up consequence management, we see these professional bodies, these associations, stepping in and taking decisions that are adverse to these individuals, which is why it is important to build shock absorbers that are ecosystem-wide as opposed to only strictly limited to the employer. And so what the JSE is doing is setting a very good tone. They are supported by the law. The National Qualifications Framework Act actually gives them the authority to do so, which is useful because now there is precedent in both public and the private sector so that people can stop this insidious act.
But in one of your recent writings on this subject, you highlighted some loopholes that have to do with the screening and HR practices, as well as, the way that job adverts are put out, for example. Talk to those briefly for me.
Oh, yeah. Well, we see a case at Ekurhuleni recently where there was a problem with how the job advert was advertised, and in fact, councillors had to relook at the appointment that they were trying to make. But in the majority of cases, there are loopholes in HR. I call them porous borders. HR porous borders. They write the advert wrongly. They do the screening and the processing wrongly. Remember, if you're in a panel, you receive 10 CVs that have been processed or cleared by HR, and they're supposed to match the advert that was issued. So when there are HR porous borders, this is what you will find because there is no rigor in the HR processes. In some instances, because we are not even automating, you are doing this thing manually. There's 100,000 CVs for a one intern position, for an example, and a lot of things can go wrong there. We have to professionalize this HR function in the public sector, but also in the private sector, as we now know, so that you can close these porous borders. But there's a second one. Sometimes people willfully
break those rules because they want Thulasizwe to get ahead. So it's not always that maybe the poorest person is HR, but because there are other people who've got an intention to promote someone and they will then flout the rules. Fortunately, the law says those must be punished. It is useful that the JSE and others are now, meeting out such consequence management because you can curb this insidious behavior.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your insights. That's Professor Busani Ngqaweni, who is principal of the National School of Government. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 0800 60,000 today.
In our top stories, Solidarity willing to negotiate downwards in FlySafair wage dispute, and Northwest University defends naming medical school after Desmond Tutu. Good morning. Trade union Solidarity says FlySafair's pilots are willing to reconsider their wage demands on condition that the current scheduling system is also considered. The pilots are seeking more predictable rosters and at least one guaranteed weekend off per month. The union is representing the pilots at the CCMA in Centurion in Gauteng. It argues the off days the pilots usually get on weekdays are not enough, especially for those who have families. Solidarity's Deputy General Secretary Hilgard Kronier says there must be a balance in how the airline manages the pilots' roster.
Usually, the system would schedule off days, but it's not to say that those off days would be during a weekend. It can be any time of the week. Now, if your family, for example, if your wife works a different job and she's off over the weekend, your family is off during the weekend, children are not at school, you don't have time to spend with them. If there's family events and over weekends you cannot attend them. So it's a simple thing. We aren't saying they should go back to a fixed roster pattern, but there should at least be some form of predictability.
The DA says it's concerned that negotiations between South Africa and the US on a trade deal are still not complete, days before the Friday deadline for Washington to impose the 30% tariff increase. US President Donald Trump had announced the tariff hike, which he said would be implemented if a trade deal was not reached by the 1st of August. The DA's trade spokesperson, Toby Chance.
The DA will welcome a deal with the United States that protects our agriculture and automotive sectors. But the ANC's recent history gives us little faith. A fired ambassador, a special envoy who isn't even on the ground, and minimal action on the looming tariff threat to South African jobs and exports. The ANC must reflect on its disastrous track record of engagements with the US, which have pushed us further and further away from our second largest trading partner.
Meanwhile, European leaders have cautiously welcomed a trade deal struck between the EU and the US in Scotland. The agreement reached after talks in Scotland between President Donald Trump and Ursula von der Leyen has averted fears of a transatlantic trade war. It imposes a 15% tariff on EU goods, half of what Trump has been threatening. Trump welcomed the deal during a news conference.
The European Union is going to agree to purchase from the United States $750 billion worth of energy. They're agreeing to open up their countries to trade at zero tariff. So that's a very big factor.
The Northwest University has defended its decision to name its medical school after the late Anglican Archbishop Desmond Tutu instead of the late former Bophuthatswana homeland leader Lucas Mangope. The construction of the medical school is underway on the university's Potchefstroom campus. The university's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Bismarck Jobeka, says naming the medical school after Mangope would have been divisive.
It is not an argument that Kgosi Mangope was, as far as development is concerned, was a luminary amongst all the Bantustan leaders of his time. Naming the medical school after him would have been a seriously divisive issue in our society. We acknowledge his focus on development. Our campus in Mafeking was his brainchild. However, that alone it was not enough of a consideration for us to say we could name the medical school after him, who would have divided the society.
And finally, the UN Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo has condemned the resurgence of violence in the eastern DRC. This follows an incident in which 38 people were killed in an ISIS-backed rebels attack on a Catholic church in Commander City. 15 others are being treated in hospital. The ADF rebels, wielding guns and machetes, are believed to have carried out the attack. Recapping the top story, trade union Solidarity says FlySafair's pilots are willing to reconsider their wage demands on condition that the current scheduling system is also considered. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
Just phone Outsurance, get a quote and see what they can offer you. If you don't save that 321 like I did, you might get a 500 or $1,000 back. Service and savings, you'll always get something out.
How is it that Outsurance provided the solution for you?
918 Rand is what I'm saving.
Incredible. What brought you and Outsurance together?
718 Rand. I end up saving.
They gave you the real deal.
It literally is the real deal.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP, TCs and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, we bring you soccer news. Orlando Pirates, they have a new coach and they're looking to deliver again at the MTN 8. And we head to Formula One, where it's Oscar Piastri who's won the, Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, if you're trying to get out of the Montana area of Pretoria, it's all very heavy. A stationary truck on the on-ramp from Sefako Makato via Zambezi Toll to the N1, and that stationary truck blocking a left lane of the N1 South. So coming out of Montana or on the M1 South through that area, it's all pretty heavily backed up. N1 between Old Joburg Road and New Road stays busy. A crash leaving Soweto on the N1, just up by Albertina Sisulu. So Soweto through Maritzburg, quite heavy. Crash before the Crown Interchange means the Mike 1 this morning, almost back as far as Uncle Charlie's. And a crash on the N12 and R24 routes after they've merged means a slow go into Galuli's coming through that Ekurhuleni side. Durban's N2 very heavy after a crash and then a breakdown before Mgeni Road. It's left a queue right back to Chatsworth on your way to Mgeni Road up via Spaghetti Junction. Very slow today. Collision on the M7 at Belleville Road in the Queensborough area. So heavy backlogs there for bluff-bound traffic. And that stationary vehicle before Market Road going into Pietermaritzburg has pushed a queue right back through to Linfield Park area this morning. Before you get there, there's a breakdown at Cliffdale as well. So Cliffdale, Key Ridge, Cliffdale, and then Linfield Park, Pietermaritzburg, very heavy on the N3 route. Cape Town protesting in the Blackheath industrial area. Lots of roads are closed, lots of congestion around that one today. And there's big traffic coming out of Athlone, Jan Smuts Drive from Cromboom up through Klipfontein through the N2 up in towards Epping. Very slow. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8 on this Monday, it is great to be in your company. I want to reflect on one or two messages that have been coming through on the WhatsApp line. One is from Bobby Mopedi in Bloemfontein. Bobby sending this message quite early, actually, even before we started the show. And Bobby was saying, I'm concerned about the landing of people like Emerson Mnangagwa at Waterkloof Airport on the weekend as he attended that joke gathering of their movements at Kempton Park. Can you please follow this matter up with the ANC, as ZANU-PF wasn't here on government business? That's the view there from Bobby Mopedi in Bloemfontein. Bobby, thank you for that. I do imagine that part of the answer will include saying that there are certain diplomatic immunities and privileges, that factually Emerson Mnangagwa is the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe and therefore is entitled to certain privileges whenever they travel into any other country. And I think that's my theory. I don't know it to be a fact. I think that partly explains why, for instance, there's a requirement in terms of the management of the cabinet by the president that any of the ministers, even if they are going on private holiday to another country, they need to get the approval from the president to go on holiday. Once you become a cabinet minister, I think it has to do with the invocation of certain privileges and amenities. But it's a valid question that you ask, the conflation between party and state, and I suppose a debate could be raised up around that. But I do suspect that part of the explanation will have to do with that provision that at law, including international law, you are under an obligation to extend certain privileges and amenities at a diplomatic level. And then D. Mjali in Lady Grey says, this thing of lying about qualifications is something that affects South Africans, especially people on the ground. Unemployment rate. The graduates are sitting at home being qualifying whereas CEOs, directors, managers, even officials in local government are sitting there lying about their qualifications. Even our politicians are deeply involved in this. They are using corruption by bribing colleges, universities, etc., getting in big companies which without qualifying at all for those position, saying that this is overdue now and, called for further investigation and I suppose just actioning of some of the rules and provisions that are in place. Dim Jali in Lady Grey sending that message. Lined up a lot of calls about this issue and others, as well as your WhatsApp voice notes. And I'll start this hour with those. Do give me a call on 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032, or send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. Let's get the third hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Right, let me go straight to your calls. I wanted to take this call a bit earlier on, so let me start with it. Quinton, out in Cape Town, good morning to you. You want to talk about the increase in the price of diesel?
Yes, please. Thank you for calling and thank you to the team and other South Africa there. It's a wonderful program. I'm a bit very, very concerned about something. The diesel prices are going up, and I'm wondering because, and this is no personal attack on anybody, but
yes,
the president's brother-in-law owns a coal mine, which, as you know, we manufacture diesel from coal. Now, if somebody while I'm talking can maybe just look it up quickly, who does that coal mine actually belong to, or who is the shareholders? Or did it belong to the president or the president's wife or whatever? The other thing is also Cecil's prices go just as up and down like all the others, whether it's Shell or whoever else, because Cecil was generated or marketed in the first place by the previous government, because in case we get disinvestment, we don't get oil or petrol from overseas. And their prices also just go up and down, just like that, although it gets manufactured here in South Africa. So how can the president just increase the prices of diesel? The poor man in the street is buying a diesel car so that he can at least save money and so on. But these prices can go up. So they're making billions and billions a day or a minute by putting the prices of diesel so up as and we don't say it.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't the voters? Haven't they got also a say in these things?
All right, Quinton.
I don't believe that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thank you for that, Quinton. As far as I understand, we manufacture our diesel from imported crude oil. And I can be corrected by experts who would know better than I do. You are absolutely correct that we do have a petroleum from coal element in the country, and you rightly attribute it to Sasol and its historical context. But I think our root one is manufacturing products such as petrol and diesel from crude oil that is imported into the country. And I think that answers a lot of the questions around increases. That's why you always hear the narrative talking about what crude oil is doing in the global markets and then how that affects us in the country. But you're absolutely right about that question about why it is that the petroleum products manufactured by Sasol then also follow the international Brent crude oil prices. And I think that's been raised in the past, but I don't think it's a completely invalid conversation to raise at the next cycle. So I think that's my roundabout way of answering, to the best of my knowledge, what's at play in as far as those prices are concerned. Peggy in Mbombela, good morning to you. You want to respond to that caller earlier on who was talking about there being no civil role that's published at the court in eMalahleni?
Thulas, he might be correct that there might be no court role, but it all depends on the court itself. How does the directives say in terms of the court role?
Yeah.
But I would say to him, if you have received a notice, or anyone listening to us right now, if you have received a notice to appear in court for whatever reason, be it criminally or civil, upon arrival, don't just sit in court without inquiring. Where is your matter going to be attended? Because that will assist you. But with him, that an order has been called that he was away, he can ask for maybe any attorney who can assist if you've got valid reasons and factual reasons as to why an application for the rescission of the judgment must be handed out. I think that will assist him. I thank you, my brother.
Thank you for that, Peggy. Would you be willing to assist if this caller can get a hold of us, and even if it's not you taking up the matter, but just guiding them in terms of getting assistance with that?
He is more than welcome. Other than that, in Mbombela, the practice is the court roll is always placed on the wall, and everyone knows that what number he will be, and also will know who will be the opponent, the attorneys, and so on. But I'm 100% willing to assist where possible. Please, my brother.
Thank you, Peggy. That's Peggy in Mbombela. So to the caller earlier on who was talking about that judgment handed out in the eviction matter out in eMalahleni while they were sitting there waiting for their matter to be called. If you can, reach out to us. We'll see if we can connect you with Begin Mbombela, who will guide you in terms of the next steps to follow around that matter. In fact, while we're talking about the courts, let me speak to Ntlantla out in KZN. Good morning to you, my brother. It's been a while.
Yeah, my brother. Good morning. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Good. My brother, what I want to talk about is the issue of democracy. Looking it from the side of National Party's version and the ANC's version, my brother. Because in today's world, we seem to be mixing the two versions together without knowing how did the ANC came to accepting the version of the National Party version of democracy. So, my brother, version ANC, it speaks about direct participation, communal and understanding in society, and majority rule to 50+1. National Party speaks about checks and balances, representative democracy, individual participation, and then in our version of democracy, we find ANC speaks about checks and balance. Last time I asked, how did the ANC came into accepting the idea of the pluralism and checks and balance?
Yeah.
Yes. Because we get so excited without understanding what does the term mean. Because and what was the intention behind that?
All right, Nhlanhla, thank you for that. Let me recommend a book for you. If you can find the book Oliver Tambo's Dream by former Justice of the Constitutional Court, and as these things would happen, I'm just not remembering his name. Come on, Thulasizwe. Okay. Oliver Tambo's Dream. It gives a fuller account, and I'm pretty sure someone will remind me on the WhatsApp line. Albie Sachs. Justice Albie Sachs, yes, by Justice Albie Sachs. Read that book and it will give you a better context in terms of the processes leading up to what you're calling checks and balances, the whole idea of dispersing power such that no single institution of state holds all the power. That was the idea, and part of it was informed by the experiences of the ANC and other parties that were part of that process, having observed what was happening in many other countries where power was either concentrated in parliament or concentrated in the executive, and the dire consequences. So the idea in our scheme was to disperse it across multiple institutions. That's part of the background as far as I understand it.
Breaking news. SARS has enhanced the personal income tax return form. It has simpler questions that adapt to your income and deductions based on your answers. Whether you're employed or self-employed, the digital form has built-in guidance and the option to save and finish later. Tax matters, so does your time. File with ease on e-filing or the SARS Mobi app today. Go to sars.gov.za. SARS, at your service.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, an update on the strike on the go out at FlySafair. The negotiations, we are told, between FlySafair and Solidarity, the trade union that is representing striking pilots, have made some headway, but a resolution remains out of reach as the two parties remain divided over scheduling practices. While salary concerns have largely been settled, the strike persists due to unresolved issues surrounding the airline's controversial rostering system. Let's speak to Kirby Gordon, who is FlySafair spokesperson. Kirby, good morning and thank you for your time. The way I understand it, you tabled what you were calling your final offer on Saturday. Members of Solidarity who are on strike voted on it yesterday and they did not approve and accept it, and largely over these issues of rostering. Tell me what your understanding is as to why that offer was not acceptable by Labour.
Good morning. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. After discussions concluded on Friday, the agreement was that the airline would put down a written proposal, which was promptly done and sent out on Saturday morning, and then subject to a vote. And as you say, on Friday at 4:30, the conclusion of the vote came in, and it was ultimately rejected. The issue at hand has to do with a number of what we refer to as hard rules against the roster. Now, these rules determine various different parameters that would ultimately shape the design of a roster. And the issue at hand is not so much what these rules are. In fact, many of them are actually currently in practice in the existing roster. The issue at hand is the way in which these rules are managed. Now, the demand on the part of Solidarity is that these rules are hard-coded into substantive negotiations and agreements, and managed on a 3-year basis in that regard. And the airline has several concerns around that. First of all, the first concern is one that around protecting the productivity of pilots. Any one of these rules as a standalone element is very reasonable. But when one combines them on top of one another and then does so in subsequent substantive negotiations years down the line, the reality is that you end up with a very restrictive system that deeply compromises the ability for the airline to produce a number of productive hours out of the pilots that would be required to maintain sustainability on the airline. The second concern is that these these rules often come with unintended consequences that the pilot body are not necessarily aware of at the time, or would really only be revealed as time goes on and these rules are implemented. So the proposal from the company was to say that we should establish an independently chaired roster committee, which would then be able to test and review any rules that the pilot body would deem appropriate, and they would be held up against a certain productivity metric to ensure that they met all of the requirements, regulatory requirements, contracts around the employee contracts, and then obviously these key kind of KPIs for productivity. And that ultimately then the pilots would be empowered to be able to shape whatever rules they wanted around their roster.
Yeah. So what steps are you going to take then, Kirby? Because I understand that you've been working with the CCMA, and from what Solidarity has been saying, pressure is mounting on you because the remainder of the pilots with whom you've been able to operate in the last week or so, statutorily and regulatory, they need to be scheduled in for some rest period. So it would appear that you don't have much time to resolve these issues.
No, I think that's a pressure that the union are putting out into the public narrative quite unfairly. The reality is what we've done is we've right-sized our schedule down to the number of available pilots. So at this stage, we have 2/3 of our pilot base, both unionized and non-unionized, that are actively working. And we've taken down the schedule by approximately 30, if not slightly more %. So the match in terms of the amount of flying that we're doing and the amount of pilots that we have available to us within the normal remits of rostering is aligned. So what that does mean for us is going out, yes, it might mean that we need to consolidate and right-size some of that schedule further out, which is something that we will take an operational view on in terms of how long we suspect it will take to resolve this matter, which hopefully is not very long. But in terms of ongoing operations are absolutely stable and are continuing absolutely fine.
And in terms of the steps going forward, what does it entail? You had said that was your final offer. How will you now tackle this issue around the scheduling and rostering systems and how those are managed?
Well, the parties need to find one another, and fortunately the CCMA is available to us. So at this stage, the idea would be then to continue the negotiations in good faith under the kind stewardship of the CCMA. And ultimately, we need to obviously look at, on both sides, making allowances and adjustments to what the proposal is, and I think perhaps clarifying some of the intentions along the way so that we actually find each other in a middle ground that's productive.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Kirby Gordon, who is FlySafair spokesperson.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's a very good morning to you. Let's start with Orlando Pirates, who've appointed Abdusalam Audu as their new head coach, replacing Jose Rivero. Now, the Moroccan tactician, who previously helped Maruma Gallants avoid relegation, brings his continental experience and a fresh vision. Now, Audu inherits a squad that's still hungry to make history as the Bucks team chase a record 4th straight MTN8 title after a solid pre-season in Spain, where they suffered just one loss. Pirates kick off their campaign against Polokwane City, and it's this weekend. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs head coach Nazruddin Nabi says pre-season matches are just for preparation and results don't matter. This after his side's loss on penalties in the Toyota Cup friendly match against Ghanaian giants Asante Kotoko at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. Chiefs have won only one of their 6 pre-season matches, including the recent trip to Holland. Elsewhere, Luis Diaz is closing in on a 1.5 billion rand move to Bayern Munich. The Bundesliga champions had an initial Euro offer for the Liverpool forward rejected last week. Diaz is currently with Liverpool on their pre-season tour in Asia, but was left out of the squad for Saturday's 4-2 friendly defeat to AC Milan. And that took place in Hong Kong. Cricket, the Proteas, they may have lost the T20 Tri-Series final to New Zealand by just 3 runs in Harare, but coach Shukri Conrad says he's proud of the fight shown by his young squad. Attention now shifting to a 6-match tour of Australia next month, featuring 3 T20Is and 3 ODIs. And tennis action, Alex de Minaur saved 3 championship points, and he went on to beat Alejandro Davidovich Fokina at the Washington Open final 5-7, 6-1, 7-6. And in the women's draw, Leila Fernandez eased past Anna Kalinskaya 6-1, 6-2 to capture her Washington Open title. And finally, Oscar Piastri passing McLaren teammate Lando Norris on the first racing lap of a wet-dry Belgian Grand Prix to take his 6th victory of the year and extend his championship lead. Yes, Piastri.
It was a great race. You know, I knew that trying to take the lead on lap 1 was my best chance of winning, and yeah, I was able to make it happen, which is nice. So got a good run out of 1, and then had to be pretty brave through Eau Rouge and try and stay as close as I could, and then got the slipstream and got it done. So very, very happy.
And that's a wrap. We'll be back in the fast lane with more sport. That's with John Gericke around 12:30. I'm Zaikan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the bail application of the woman accused of killing her 11-year-old son, Jaden Lee Meek, will continue in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court in Western Johannesburg this morning. Tiffany Meek claims that she has been framed. The Bellville Magistrates Court in Cape Town is today expected to deliver judgment in the bail application of a woman accused of kidnapping a 9-day-old baby. And trade union Solidarity says FlySafair's pilots are willing to reconsider their wage demands on condition that the current scheduling system is also considered. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very urgent announcement. If you're just about to go through Uncle Charlie's and turn up to Joburg on the mic 1, the road is closed. The highway is closed between Boyson's Road and the Crown Interchange due to a crash. There's very heavy traffic back through Ormonde and getting back to Uncle Charlie's. Perhaps if you've come through Diepkloof and you're on that N12, avoid joining the mic 1. Just go across, use Klip River Drive as your alternative route. Boyson's area quite heavy as well as motorists trying to deal with that closure on the highway, and they'll pour off into the Boyson's area. So big delays building through there. The N1 leaving Soweto stays heavy this morning up as far as Maresburg. That's after an earlier crash, which we're told is being cleared, but there may well be something else potting there because the traffic's taking forever to clear through. Durban's N2 still heavy between Cement Factory and Westwood Mall. A series of incidents there have all been cleared, but it's left a backlog into the roadworks. M7 towards the Bluff, that's heavy. A crash at Belleville Road in the Queensborough area. Delays back from North Dean and North Park. And if you're on your way to Pietermaritzburg, give yourself a packed lunch and something to drink. It is heavy today. There's a broken down vehicle before Hammersdale. So from Key Ridge going up Cliffdale into Hammersdale, single lane section, that's heavy. And then a single lane section for roadworks between Ashburton and Pietermaritzburg. That traffic parks all the way back to Linfield Park. The R103 local alternative is jamming heavily. Ashburton, Polly Shorts and going in towards Pietermaritzburg as well. Cape Town, a crash on the M3 at UCT just by Princess Anne. That's heavy coming off Wynberg Hill up through Newlands towards that particular scene. And the other issue we're watching is just around the Blackheath industrial area. Multiple roads closed due to protesting. A lot of traffic congestion on local routes through that area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
One more time, let's say good morning to Ndauling Lechela. And Ndauling, let's start with government and the network industries and that focus that's been on for quite some time. Tell me about this more aid that government has approved for Transnet.
So government has approved an additional 94.8 billion rand in guarantee support for Transnet. This financial backing aims to help the firm manage its debt burden and implement its capital investment program. The Department of Transport announced that 48.6 billion rand of the approved guarantees will ensure Transnet debt redemptions are covered, providing liquidity over the next 5 years. Another 46.2 billion rands was approved to mitigate risks associated with Transnet's recent credit rating downgrade. The government aims to accelerate reforms in the logistics sector, including private sector participation, and Transnet has taken steps towards this goal by splitting its freight rail division into an operations unit and a distinct infrastructure manager unit. This move is expected to attract private sector investment into SA's rail corridors and drive the recovery of the country's logistics network. But Transnet estimates it needs 14 billion rands annually over the next 5 years to upgrade its network infrastructure to standard for private operators.
All right, this is interesting. Tell me about Southern Sun and this hotel project out in by the Oceans Umhlanga development, or Umhlanga as some would say.
So Umhlanga, the hotel operator confirmed that it will be taking up a portion of the South Tower at the Oceans Umhlanga mega development. Now, the company has been in talks with developer Vivian Reddy for over a year to secure the deal. According to the company's CEO, Marcel van Oluk, the new property will be a deluxe 4-star hotel and marks Southern Sun's first foray into the branded hotel residence and apartment space, a market that has seen significant growth in recent years. Now, Van Oluk notes that the company is investing an equity stake in the tower and will be part of the management of the hotel and residences. The exact amount of the investment has not been disclosed as details are still being finalized. Now, the Oceans Umhlanga development, valued at around 5 billion rands, is a mixed-use property that already features a Radisson hotel, luxury apartments, and is close to the Oceans Mall. Now, the South Tower, where the Southern Sun Hotel will be located, is scheduled to be completed in late 2027.
All right. Lastly, Ndauling, what kind of a trading day can we expect in the markets today?
The local markets likely to open mixed following global peers. In terms of company news, traders will wake up to earnings from Valterra Platinum, previously known as Amplat. Moving over to currency markets, the rand is on the back foot this morning at 17.78 to the greenback, ahead of that rates move and the tariff deadline. And the recent trade deals have been boosting commodity markets, particularly oil, with analysts expecting demand to improve. And with that, Brent is at $67 per barrel. Over in Wall Street, sentiment remains upbeat with futures in positive territory. Investors awaiting monetary policy moves from the Fed, while eyeing earnings from Microsoft and Meta. Those numbers out later this week. Lastly, in Asia, stocks on track to close mixed as investors continue to track trade deal developments.
That's Ndauling Lechela there. Always right on the money, and she's been throughout the morning with your updates for the last 3 hours.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
All right, let me reflect on one or two messages that have been coming through. So someone out there responding to the caller that was talking about, the price of diesel and basically making and trying to connect ownership of coal mines by, I presume, Patrice Motsepe, relationship with the president and the price of diesel. And we were talking about, our main source of diesel being imports. And this person says, on the issue of diesel, we import most of it. We only have one refinery left, that is Astron in Cape Town. So that answers that, at least from that listener who's able to give a definitive answer. I gave an answer that, I was padding and saying that I'm not 100% sure, but I do know we import Brent crude, and to the extent possible, we then produce the petroleum products that would include your diesel and your petrol in the country. So there you have that answer there. Then someone who sent quite a number of messages, and I will read the first one. Hello SAFM. How is it that outsurance are allowed to monopolize your ad space to the extent that they do? And now SAFM presenters are adding to it by referring to callers wherever they are as being out somewhere. That last part, there's absolutely no conspiracy to do that. Absolutely not. I 100% can guarantee you can put me under oath, put a lie detector test, all of that, whatever it takes. There is no instruction that we subtly, we don't have to do it subtly, because, if we're engaging in marketing, we will tell you, we will always be honest with you. For instance, if we have an interview that is sponsored, we always say, this interview is brought to you by XYZ. Never have hidden it, never will hide it. I personally would not participate in such a scheme where we subtly just, suggestive messages. I can assure you now, I would never participate in that. But you do raise an important point, and I'll throw it back at you as a South African citizen about the funding model of the SABC. The SABC has to be funded somehow, and the SABC has to compete in a commercial space. Is that ideal? That you have to ask yourself. How many years have we been talking about a funding model for the SABC? So let me put it this way to you. We are doing what we have to do to survive in a situation where we're just not funded properly, and we've never been. There have been countless debates about a funding model for the SABC. I've attended many conferences, particularly of the ANC, when they were, running the government solo, where this issue was raised. I don't know. Here we are today. Still don't have a funding model. So the SABC has to compete in what is increasingly a commercial space, and that's part of the reality that we are having to contend with. All right, enough about that. Let me go to your calls. Let me go to JJ in Polokwane. Good morning to you, JJ.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to talk about justice zone. But let me start here. Men in their nature don't want to accept their responsibilities, and whatever they have done which is wrong, they don't. I can give you an example. I'll be very short. An example by Adam and Eve when they have messed up in the
biblical on me, yeah?
Yes, when they have messed there. And then God called them, Adam, where are you? And he says, I'm hiding here. And he said, what's the problem? Then he says, the woman that you have given to me.
Yeah.
Which means he does not want to accept that he has done something wrong.
Yes.
He blames the God himself. So let's come to Justice Zondo.
Yes.
Justice Zondo is the one who has done all these investigations. Then the president comes with the list of people. Justice Zondo knows them very well, and he swears them in.
Yeah.
And the signature that is there, it's for Justice Zondo and those people. He does not even say, look, those ones I am not going to take because I have got a reservation. He didn't say that, but he expects the president, who was also given, by the way, he was given those people by the ANC, and he carries them to a Justice Zondo. Justice Zondo has the full right as the person who's swearing people in, whom he expects that they have got high morals. And the signature of Justice Zondo is there.
But JJ, he
cannot blame the president.
No, he actually can, JJ, because the composition of the executive is the prerogative of the president. So imagine,
it's the prerogative of the president, but the president cannot bring thieves into the judge and the judge accept them. He is immoral if he does that.
He would have no grounds to say, Mr. President, you can't appoint this person. At best, you could have a conversation, I don't know, unofficially, but I think to say I won't sway in this person. I won't sway in this person would be problematic.
He should have a small conversation with
on the
him,
side.
2 minutes, 3 minutes, and say, Mr. President, those ones I am not going to do that.
I hear
if
you,
he is morally right.
Okay. I hear you, JJ. Thank you for that. That's JJ in Polokwane. What do you think of that proposition that JJ has put on the table? Maduna in the Free State, good morning to you. Also on Justice Zondo.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm also on that issue.
Yes.
The Zondo Commission came up with some recommendations which were never implemented. One may say that they have been swept under the carpet. The country, as we speak, seems to lack decisive leadership. For that, I would like to concur with the former caller who said probably if we consider the retired Chief Justice Raymond Zondo to lead this country, that could be a good idea indeed. It will be the right direction. Or if not Raymond Zondo, we should look for another former justice, Mogoeng. I think they can lead us. As we speak, the country seems not to have a decisive leadership. ANC has lost everything. So for that, let's abandon them and take another new route that will maybe take the country somewhere.
So you concur that it's time for some of these former justices to actually step up to the plate and take leadership, the leadership mantle, as high as the presidency?
Yes, because as you can see, they are also educated, highly educated, and they will implement all those recommendations.
Gotcha.
And those who are corrupt, they will be fired.
All right, Maduna, thank you for that. Yeah. That's Maduna in Free State, in the Free State. Let me play a voice note that has to do with this issue of former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo and some of the comments that he's had to make.
Good morning, Thulasizwe from Durban. You know, Judge Zondo is just showing how much of a flip-flop he is. Because when he was swearing these ministers, even the president, he said he made a political statement saying, appointing Ramaphosa was the best decision South Africans even could have taken. Ignoring evidence against Ramaphosa and Glencoe and those ministers. So he's getting a piece of his cake.
All right. Thank you for that. And I did expect that some of that sentiment would come through, the criticism of how Justice Raymond Zondo himself conducted that commission of inquiry into state capture. We will make more time and take more of your calls a bit later on.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
In fact, picking up on that last voice note that was critical of former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo and his handling of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, let me play this voice note that talks about what this person calls useless commissions of inquiry.
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe. It has been proven many times that these commissions of inquiry are useless, are waste of taxpayers' money and misuse of state resources, no accountability, no consequences management after the inquiries. What is the use of establishing these commissions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. You see, and that really is the risk, that this becomes a mechanism that has been used so many times. It's about, seeking out and bringing out truth in any matter of public concern. But the whole idea is that you then act on the findings and recommendations. And if you don't, and I think I've said enough about the idea that we now have a commission of inquiry. You'll forgive me if you've heard this, my lament before. So I'm sorry to burden you with it because it keeps bugging me. So the new commission of inquiry that we're going to have into TRC-ordered prosecutions is essentially a commission of inquiry into why the recommendations of a commission of inquiry were not implemented, right? So that's what keeps bugging me. And I think Justice Raymond Zondo also alludes to it in that interview with the Sunday Times. Not exactly what I'm talking about, but talking about how, South Africans are seeing the effects of not implementing or implementing really slowly the findings of commissions of inquiry.
SAFM
guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's urgent if you're just about to come in to Joburg up the Mike 1, joined from the N12. Uncle Charlie's, don't do that. The road is closed. It's been a massive multi-vehicle pile-up. Going to pop a video up on Twitter at Traffic SA in just a moment. Show you exactly what's going on there. A bus involved, multiple vehicles, a small truck. The road is closed. Boyson's through the Crown. Terrific pressure from Uncle Charlie's and all sorts of trouble around Boyson's as you come off the highway and hit those alternative routes. Elsewhere, the N1 North leaving Soweto still very slow up towards the Albertina Sisulu Maresburg exit. The N1 making your way through Midrand. Just some pressure there between Samran and the New Road exit. And a crash on your way to Pretoria this morning on the R21 just north of Nell Mapius Drive. Durban to Pietermaritzburg. A heads up here. You'll need a lot of extra time to get through. Breakdown at Hammersdale. That's heavy all the way back to Key Ridge. And then a single lane open for roadworks going to Pietermaritzburg between Ashburton and Market Road. That's heavy from Linfield Parkside on the highway with a big pushback up the R103 through Ashburton, Polly Shorts into Pietermaritzburg. So dreadfully heavy this morning. The N2 running north still very heavy from Cement Factory up towards the Umgeda Road exit. That's after a series of collisions and breakdowns on that route today as well. And Cape Town, we did report a crash on the M3 inbound at UCT. It looks like that's out of the way. It is busy from Wynberg Hill through to Hospital Bend. And the other big story is the closure of roads, multiple routes in the Blackheath industrial area, including the main drag Wimbledon Road, all closed due to protesting. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, let's bring you this story now. The Count Me In movement has raised concern over what it terms the systemic exclusion of South African Spaza shop owners under the current regulatory framework. In light of government's recently announced 500 million rand Spaza shop support fund, the movement is calling for an urgent and comprehensive overhaul of the existing system, which it argues continues to marginalize local entrepreneurs in townships and rural communities. Let's speak to Bishop Makubo, who is from Count Me In movement and is an organizer at that organization. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. How does this systemic exclusion of South African Spaza shops manifest itself when, on paper at least, we are told that this part of the requirements for this fund is that it's meant to support Spaza shops run by South Africans?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and the viewers. Thank you for honoring us here at SAFM. The launch, as from the launch of the Spaza Shop 500 million funds, a lot of bylaws and red tapes have been imposed to us as Spaza Shop owners compared to the previous bylaws that were in place before the Spaza Shop launch. Now, this brings a challenge, and this challenge, it's more of a proliferation of unregistered foreign-owned Spaza shop because they are not subjected to the same inspections or regulatory scrutiny, which create an uneven and unfair playing field for local entrepreneurs. So we're pleading with the minister that they perhaps need to introduce a type registration system that gradually formalizes informal traders instead of these bylaws, which to us we see them as obsolete and antiquated bylaws. 2025, we cannot be subjected to such bylaws. Firstly, for you now to be recognized or Spaza shop owner, you need to register for a fire certificate, which costs 440 rands. And thereafter, you go apply for a certificate of acceptability, which is with the Health Environment Services. Then it's 175 rands for CIPC, and then which you register with, automatically with SARS and PE. Thereafter, now you need to have a building plan, which you apply with the land use management, which costs about 1,100. After that, you need to apply for consent. Now, they give you a form which you need to go to your neighbors, left, right, back, and front. They need to sign a consent. that they agree and allow you to operate within their neighborhood. Should there be any neighbor objecting or all neighbors objection, now that has to be taken to a tribunal.
So are you saying that all of these make South African-owned Spaza shops, particularly those that seek to benefit from this 500 million rand fund, less competitive compared to unregulated, illegally owned, largely by foreign nationals, Spaza shops? Are you saying that takes away the competitiveness?
Definitely, because no consent was given when these foreign migrants opened their shops. We just woke up in the morning, you see there's a Spaza shop. There was never any consent required. But now with us now trying to tap into this Spaza shop funding, now we need consent. And that consent, it doesn't come free. You need to pay for that consent. The consent, you pay for it, it's about 1,125. After getting that consent, should it be approved, you still need to go register. You need to do a zoning.
So, but Bishop,
yes.
Bishop, you do remember the context in which this came about, right? The widespread non-adherence to basic bylaws that was proving to be, in some instances, detrimental, for instance, in the handling of food with the deaths that we were seeing. But secondly, let me also put this proposition to you. If government is putting 500 million rand taxpayers' money, surely it is not too much to expect that we would expect that there would be conditions that ensure that it's not money down the drain, one, but two, that it goes to the right people for the right reasons to achieve the right objectives. So I don't know, the stringency, is it not to be expected?
Over the past few weeks, we've been running and conducting a number of workshops on food safety, food handling, compliance. We've been going around doing roadshows and also doing in-visos, wherein now South African Spaza shop owners and emerging entrepreneurs entering the space. They are being given workshops and they are certified by the CETA. So these are formal workshops in which are given food safety and safety certificate by CETA. So, to try and cap this alarming high rate of unqualified or unregistered SA nationals who are running Spaza shops. So now the introduction of these bylaws is only implemented or it's only subjected to South African-owned Spaza shops, because the existing foreign-owned Spaza shop, they are not subjected to the same inspection system. Do they have these requirements? Do they have the zoning certificate? Do they have the certificate of occupation that is required? Do they have all these? Because now they don't have the necessary documents to operate. Right. So rather the government, they shut down all the Spaza shops and say everyone has to follow the process. Any tech shop or Spaza shop that will be opened is the one that will have been qualified with.
All right, Bishop, thank you for that. I think we got enough out of that conversation. That's Bishop Makubo from the Count Me In movement, where he's organizer.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me end it off with one or two of your voice notes.
Morning, Thulas. This is Mr. FM in Durban. Yeah, I hear about this deal between EU and US in terms of the tariffs. Then what about us? What about Africa? I don't know. The way he runs things, this guy seems to be a bully, Mr. Trump. Thanks, it's Mr. FM in Durban. Bye, Thulas.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. FM. Just making reference to the deal that was struck between the US and the EU, the trade deal that will see the tariffs imposed by the US go from 30%, which had been threatened, to 15%, and then a whole host of other provisions. And you're absolutely right. What about us? There is work that is on the go. There's a framework agreement that we are told is in place, but it's not really a substantive one. So all that remains is for South Africa to work with the United States and see if we can get that agreement over the line such that it provides for continued trade on favorable terms between the two countries. That's it really. That's our full story to you on this Monday. Stick around. The Talking Point with Kete Mohlahlana is up next after the news here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and you've been briefed.
In our top stories, closing arguments in Tiffany Meek's bail application and Solidarity willing to negotiate downwards in FlySafair wage dispute. Good morning. The bail application of the woman accused of killing her 11